present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud and Denise Coffey in just a minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, I'm going to ask these four panelists to try and speak, if they can, for just 1 minute, on some unlikely subject, but without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. If one of the other three think they are guilty of doing this, they may challenge them by pressing a buzzer in front of them. If I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. If I disagree with the challenge, the person speaking gains a point and, of course, carries on with the subject. That's the way we play, and that's the way we score. And let us begin this particular show with Clement Freud. Clement, you don't need to take up your buzzer yet. You're the one who'll be challenged, if possible. Clement, the subject is avoiding the bill in a restaurant. Can you try and talk on that unlikely subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Somebody was once asked how they avoided falling hair, and they said duck. And avoiding a bill in a restaurant, I suppose, would be pretty similar. The best way to do so would be to disappear when it arrives. If you mean...
Denise Coffey, you have challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
I disagree entirely. I'm sorry, Denise. You very well tried, but no, he hadn't really hesitated.
No, he always talks like that, doesn't he?
I beg your pardon.
So, as I disagree with the challenge, it means that Clement Freud gains a point, and he keeps the subject, and he has 46 seconds for avoiding the bill in a restaurant, starting now.
The smartest way I ever encountered of somebody doing this was he and a woman went into a restaurant where people are seated at tables even though they necessarily do not come in together.
Derek, number wife, who challenged?
Hesitation that time.
No, I don't think so. He was just taking a breath. No, you're being far too sharp today. Let people get on with their stories.
And ugly with it.
So, I disagree with the challenge. Clement Freud gains yet another point, and he has 34 seconds to continue with avoiding the bill in a restaurant, starting now.
And the first person came into this eating...
Derek, number wife, who challenged?
Repetition of person.
Yes, that's right. You talked about a person coming into a restaurant before. So, this time I agree with your challenge, Derek, so
You'll
you
never find out now, will you?
You'll never know the end of the story.
He doesn't mind, because he's gained a point and the subject, and he has 32 seconds to continue with avoiding the bill in a restaurant, starting now.
Well, the best way, of course, is really to have some really rather unpleasant object.
Kenneth Williams, you have challenged.
Repetition of really to really. The best way really is to have some really.
Yes, that is perfectly true, yes. They are being very sharp already. We've only just started. My goodness me. All right, Kenneth, so you gain a point, because I agree with the challenge. You take over the subject. There are 27 seconds left for avoiding the bill in a restaurant, starting now.
I always say, alas, no money have I about my person, nor do I seem to be carrying a checkbook. Is there a good Samaritan among us who will relieve me of this financial burden? And somebody full of sympathy always steps into the breach and says, Kenneth, allow me to pay for your provender. And so I leave the restaurant.
Oh, to be Kenneth Williams, if that's the way you lead your life.
Am I in the lead? Never mind my life. Am I in the lead?
Just a minute, Kenneth, contain yourself, because I've got to explain. There may be somebody who hasn't heard the program before, and they would like to know that when the whistle goes, it tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever... Yes. Didn't you know that before, Clement? How do you then always manage to come in just before it goes? Anyway, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. In this case, it was Kenneth Williams, so he now has 2 points at the end of that round. And Clement Freud has 2 points.
Oh.
And Derek has 1, and Denise is yet to score. Let us carry on. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? The subject?
Yes.
You will. Yes. You're raring to go.
No.
Marvellous. Leonardo da Vinci. That's slightly throwing you back on your heels, as they say, but 60 seconds, starting now.
I haven't the money to go to the Louvre in Paris. It's a very fine museum.
Derek Nimmo has challenged you.
I was just going to offer him a penny.
So Kenneth not only gets money for his meals, but he gets it for other purposes as well. A very nice line, Derek. I'll tell you what I'll do. As it was a nice joke, I won't charge any points or any penalties, and we'll continue with Kenneth on the subject of Leonardo da Vinci with 55 seconds left, starting now.
Where, of course, is housed the famous Mona Lisa. The most representative...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
It's the painting of the Mona Lisa.
Yes, but I have heard
Mona
people
Lisa is
speaking
dead and
colloquially.
buried. Oh, no.
And in this program, when you're
Because
trying
there's a
to...
shepherd hanging on the wall at Kenwood. I mean, no, it's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
I think Kenneth was speaking quite colloquially when he was talking about the famous Mona Lisa. So he gains a point because I disagree with the challenge, and he has 47 seconds to continue with Leonardo da Vinci, starting now.
The other canvas that springs to mind would be the Adoration of the Magi, which is the middle period, and the last being St. John the Baptist, also in the museum I mentioned before. And what is very little realized is that this young Italian notary had an affair with a peasant girl, as a result of which the union was born Leonardo da Vinci.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
It was long before the Union days.
So how would you put it then?
I wouldn't.
Everybody...
This is meant to be a
wouldn't.
a family show.
You're taking over Kenneth Williams's prerogative now to talk about family shows. We understand what Kenneth meant by the union, and he's put it very, very, most tastefully, I thought. So I disagree with the challenge, so therefore Kenneth has another point, and there are 16 seconds for Leonardo da Vinci, starting now.
Leonardo da Vinci influenced Michelangelo, and when the palace at Florence had to be decorated, he contracted a cartoon with the Signorina, but she also engaged Michelangelo and rivalry.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Reputation of Michelangelo.
That's quite right, you did say...
You're allowed, it's the title.
No, Leonardo da Vinci.
I was just getting going there, it's disgraceful. I have a good mind to withdraw.
What were you getting going on?
Well, that rivalry, because Leonardo withdrew after the Signorina had given the portrait, thing to Michelangelo.
Really?
But
Well,
I
that
couldn't
went down
get
very
going.
well with the audience,
Well, did
yes.
he win that challenge?
Yes, he did, yes, because you did it twice. So, Clement Freud gains a point, and the subject, 5 seconds left for Leonardo da Vinci, starting now.
The first time I saw a Leonardo da Vinci cartoon...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Oh, well, he's got it right. I thought he was going to say he could never have seen him, but they said cartoon.
So Kenneth was being too keen, which means that Clement gets another point and continues for 3 seconds with Leonardo da Vinci, starting now.
I didn't think it was at all funny. I looked at it most carefully.
Clement Freud was speaking then when the whistle went. He gains that extra point, and now he has a lead of 1 over all the others at the end of that round.
Yeah, I get out, so he came in on the last few seconds, didn't he? I mean,
But
it's
you
just
tried very
swindling,
hard
isn't
to
it?
get in on the last few
Yeah,
seconds.
I was just
didn't
getting
you?
going, wasn't I? I was all throbbing here.
You were throbbing so
He
much
was,
you got
he
your...
really was.
He was really throbbing.
He takes advantage, though, coming in like that.
Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? The subject is antiques. 60 seconds, starting now.
One of the curious things about mankind is they rush out and buy things when they're very, very new, and then after having them for a little while, they discard them when they become old-fashioned, leaving them for future generations to come along somewhat later and buy them again and call them antiques. I'm rather keen on collecting antiques myself, particularly pottery and English porcelain. To have in one's hand a genuine piece of Dr. Wall Worcester, I think is one of the most exciting things that can happen to anybody. Bit of Prattware, perhaps, or Obadiah Sherritt, or the Brothers Wood, or maybe a piece of bow.
Oh, Clement, why have you challenged?
You can't have all that in one hand.
All right, give Clement Freud a bonus point. We'll let Derek Nimmo continue with his delightful dissertation on his antique English porcelain and pottery. Derek, you have 24 seconds left, starting now.
In 1745, in Chelsea, the first factory was founded, soon to be followed one at a place I mentioned a moment ago, which was hard by. They were made with soft paste, unlike the Continental, which was of the hard variety. Then these factories went bankrupt, and a man called Dewsbury moved them to Derby, where the most beautiful and exquisite...
Derek Nimmo was then speaking when the whistle went, so he gains the extra point. Also, he not only started with the subject, but he finished with it. And the one time he was challenged, I didn't give it against him. It was only just a joke challenge, so I think it's only fair to give him that bonus point he gets for going all the way through almost without a stop.
Thank
well
you,
done,
Nicky.
Derek. Denise Coffey, will you begin the next round? The subject is reading teacups. Can you talk about that for just a minute, starting now?
I read a teacup the other day which told me to beware of drinking that beverage. It told me that the tannin content was exceedingly high in that particular cup. I thought this was most peculiar because all I could see were a few leaves going...
Clement Freud is challenged.
It's a repetition of...
Yes. I'm afraid there was. You've got to be careful, or you're going to get into trouble.
I was under the impression I went...
That was still repetition, but anyway, there are 44.5 seconds left for reading the teacups. Clement Freud, with you, starting now.
I do love to go to bed with a good teacup. When I'm under the blankets, between the sheets.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation, obviously, you'll never read teacups beneath the sheets. That was all rubbish.
He actually didn't say reading the teacups.
When I am beneath the sheets reading the teacups, that's what he said.
No, he said he liked to go to bed with a good teacup, and when he was underneath the sheets, we didn't get any further than that.
Except your...
And you were very
My
keen.
challenge was deviation. The whole thing is extremely devious, and you know it.
It may be extremely devious, and when we hear what he does with the teacups underneath the sheets, it may be even more devious. But the point is, he is not at this present moment deviating from the subject on the card, which is reading teacups. Until he does, he gains another point. He continues with the subject with 38 seconds left, starting now.
And yet at fairs, there are people who do this professionally without seeming to derive any pleasure, but simply financial gain therefrom. You go in, pay a certain small token sum of money, and a woman, invariably dressed in some outlandish costume, asks whether you would like to have your fortune told in India or China tea. And you can then decide which you would like, long grain, short...
Kenneth Williams, your challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, indeed, yes. He couldn't find another word for grain, could he? Well done, Kenneth. So, you're right this time, you gain a point, and you have the subject with 12 seconds left, reading teacups, starting now.
When the gypsy came to read the teacup, she made me feel so gay, for she said that someone in the tea room would steal my heart away. That was first...
A split second you were home by.
Oh, I
you were
made
challenged. Yes, you just made it. Yes, you got the extra point for speaking when the whistle went. But if you...
I slipped up on me diction. That's where I slipped up,
Yes,
wasn't
but
it?
if you slip up again, keep going.
And I know, I'm a fool to myself.
So, at the end of that round, Clement Freud has a lead of 2 over Kenneth Williams, who's in second place, and the other 2 are trailing a little. Kenneth, it's your turn to begin. The subject, very aptly chosen for you, I think, by Ian Messiter, my enthusiasm.
Ah, charming.
Can you talk on your enthusiasm? Well, actually, the subject is my enthusiasm, starting now.
The singular...
No, the subject is my enthusiasm. 60 seconds, starting now.
Or my enthusiasm can be extended to a variety of subjects, but it centers mainly on the single line. While he lived, he was the guiding star of a whole brave nation. When he died, the little children cried in the streets. I became really enthusiastic about that particular line when I was 17.
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
An hesitation.
There was no hesitation, no. And so he continues with the subject with 30 seconds left for my enthusiasm, starting now.
Of this number was William of Nassau, Prince of Orange, called the Silent. another thing which held me and reverberated through my mental apparatus. Then I became terribly aware of the gouache, the technique of so stripping of the canvas that there is almost a relievo or Italio effect. Indeed, Leonardo da Vinci does this something to take note.
Well, that virtuoso performance on the part of Kenneth Williams is made him so enthusiastic he got up and did a couple of pirouettes for us. And I must explain to the listeners, the big laugh that came in the middle of his sort of little expose on enthusiasm was that he made a magnificent gesture, nearly decapitated Clement Freud. But he has crept up equal in second place to Derek Nimmo, and they're both a little way behind Clement Freud. Derek Nimmo, your turn to begin. My best conjuring trick. Can you talk about that for 60 seconds starting now?
My best conjuring trick is one in which I cut Kenneth Williams in half. This I have been experimenting with for some little time as one way I found to lose friends rather rapidly. How I do it is I have a large cabinet through which I put a saw, and I pull it backwards and the other direction several times until it appears to cut right through this chest, and one part of the aforementioned competitors on the other side, and the other portion of this odd chap is at the other. And to the audience, they find it absolutely riveting when they see it glistening towards them. And then I sometimes are greeted with a tremendous round of applause for this magnificent, shining apparition. They say, "What ho for KW, who is now in twain." And people come from all over this fair island.
Well done, Derek. It's your day today. He started with a subject, he finished with a subject, he cut Kenneth Williams in half, and he didn't even have time to put him together again. He deserved that extra bonus point for keeping going without being interrupted. Denise Coffey, your turn to begin. Subject, Knickerbocker Glories.
Plural?
I beg your pardon?
Sorry. Are there more than one of them? I mean,
on the yes, the subject is Knickerbocker Glories. That's the title on the card. Can you try and talk on that unlikely subject? Well, 60 seconds, starting now.
How strange I should be asked to speak about Knickerbocker Glories, ladies and gentlemen, because it happens to be my favourite food in the singular. However, you must be very careful if you go into a high-class ice cream parlour in asking for one.
Oh, Derek Nimmo, you child.
Sorry, rather gallant.
Yes, I'm gallant.
I retract it.
You're right, you retracted it. Good. So Denise Coffey has another point, and she has 46 seconds to continue with Knickerbocker Glories, starting now.
When Derek Nimmo and I go into a high-class ice cream parlour...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Well, she did say high class.
Yes.
I also said ice cream parlour twice. That's what comes of being a creep, you see. Does you no good, does it?
Yes, once you've been stopped, Denise, it's very difficult to get going again sometimes. 42 seconds for you, Derek, to take over Knickerbocker Glories, starting now.
I have the most wonderful Norfolk jacket, which I wear over my knickerbockers, and they're known to all my friends throughout this land as my Knickerbocker Glories. And every time I go out with my gun, shooting at the peasant on the grass, they say, "What ho, here comes Nimmo, out again in..."
Denise Coffey's challenge, you're right.
Repetition of all those people saying, "What ho, here comes Nimmo again."
What was repetitious about it?
Well, he said they kept saying it.
Well done, Denise. So she'll go bonus point for a very clever challenge, but it's not strictly one of the rules of the game. So Derek, therefore, continues with the subject, and there are 27 seconds left for Knickerbocker Glories, starting now.
I once went into a corner house in the Strand and sat myself down at a table near the window. When a waitress came alongside, I said, "Please, madam, would you be so kind?"
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
If you sit near a window, how can a waitress come alongside?
She can come along the other side where the window isn't.
No, he definitely meant the window side.
No. She can come alongside the table quite easily. So Derek Nimmo has another point. 18 seconds left for Knickerbocker Glories, Derek, starting now.
The great chef at the Savoy, Mr. Trompetto, once showed me how to make one of these delicious Sunday coffees.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
No, there was no hesitation, Kenneth. No, you've hesitated.
Deviation, then we've shot over from the corner house and this waitress. There's a boy.
If you get interrupted, it's very difficult to continue. It's best to start again on something else, which Derek's doing. So he's now gone to the Savoy. He's lifted the tone a little. Why not? 11.5 seconds left, Derek, with another point to you. Knickerbocker Glory starting now.
Sitting in Glen Eagle's Hotel, midway between I there had the best Knickerbocker Glory of the whole of my life. It was served to me on a silver tray by a magnificent Hardener.
Well, Derek, congratulations. You've really pulled up your socks and your Knickerbocker glories because you've come from a very weak third place to a very definite lead at the end of that round. Clement Freud, your turn to begin. The birds and the bees. I don't know why it makes them laugh. They're lovely little things, birds and bees. But can you discourse on that for 60 seconds, starting now?
Birds and bees are animals which are often put forward before children as the epitome of how reproduction works. And it is quite true that men and women have children very similarly to the way birds and bees
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Birds.
Deviation. There's nothing similar about the way we have children.
I've never seen ladies going around laying eggs.
You've seen them stinging people.
Yeah. Well, you really yoked him this time, haven't you? I quite expect. A point to you, Kenneth, and the subject, and 42 seconds left. The birds and the bees starting now.
Oh, I don't want it.
So Clement Freud challenge first. And
Deviation from the theme of the birds and the bees. I don't want it.
That's quite right.
Why did you just say hesitation? It makes my decisions so much easier. I don't want it has got nothing to do with being devious from the birds and the bees. He might talk about the birds and the bees and say, I don't want it. It's perfectly legitimate. It makes sense to me, yes. So Kenneth Williams has another point, and there are 39 seconds left for the birds and the bees, starting now.
Well, they fly about in the air, and they also pollinate things going up.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Because birds don't pollinate.
Bees do. Birds and the bees on the card.
The birds don't pollinate and the bees do. It's a very difficult situation, isn't it, to judge? All right, audience, do you agree with Clement Freud's challenge? And cheer if you do. And if you disagree with this challenge, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? A draw. Kenneth Williams continues with the subject. No points scored. 32 seconds left, Kenneth. The birds and the bees starting now.
This dust they distribute sometimes.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Birds don't distribute dust.
I have seen birds picking up little bits of dust to build their nest, and they sometimes drop it on the way, which is very a distributive process. So Kenneth Williams has another point, and there are 28 seconds left for the birds and the bees, starting now.
A lady found in
Clement
Holland.
Freud is challenged again.
I want Kenneth Williams to have another point.
He's got another point. There are 27 seconds left. Kenneth, for the birds and the bees, starting now.
The larks in Holland Park made a nest out of straws and tissue, which they stuffed in the lattice work, and a lady found it and sent it to the Times and said, people said to her, where'd you get that lovely lampshade? No, bird's nest, dear. They made it out of drinking straws.
Derek Nimmer, why have you challenged?
Repetition of bird's nest.
That's right, yes, you've had more than one bird's nest. So Derek takes over the subject. There are 12 seconds left for the birds and the bees, starting now.
I particularly like the jolly old honeybee. How nice it is to be in a meadow in June and see him flying around from clover leaf to lovely bits of foxglove, popping in his little nose, peeping around, coming out all yellow, flying on to the heart.
Well, that, I'm afraid, is the end of the show for this week, because we don't have any more time. Reading backwards, Denise Coffey trailed a little in fourth place behind Clement Freud, who was a very good third, to Kenneth Williams, second, but they were both behind this week's winner by 2 points, Derek Nimmo. I'm sorry, I'm afraid that's all we have time for this week. We do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Denise Coffey in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, these four experienced and clever panelists are going to try and speak for just a minute, if they can, on some unlikely subject that I will give them without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. That's the way we play, and that's the way we score. And let us begin this week with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, the subject is thrills. You've given us so many of them in your time. Maybe you can give us another one now. But can you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
The first thing that comes to my mind is the roller coaster. Oh, what a thrill that is for me to go careering down the incline. I don't much care for the up bit, but when it comes down, oh, my stomach goes I cry out.
Derek Nimmo has challenged you.
A repetition of assorted O's and O's.
There's a repetition of noise.
A repetition of, well, he did an O earlier on, he did another O.
You thought they were exactly the same O, did you?
There were several that were the same.
I would have thought they were entirely different. They were all very embarrassing, and I think they were different sounds. After all, you can always say have a repetition of sound like a repetition of speech. So, Kenneth, it's a difficult one to judge, but I give you the benefit of the doubt. You gain a point because I disagree with the challenge, and you keep the subject with 40 seconds left for thrills starting now.
And the thrill of sitting in that darkened auditorium when the favourite screen star appears. Lovely Marlena, or that old boy I frequently referred to as Foxtrot. Ah, I see mystery. I see you.
Clement Freud, you challenge.
Repetition.
Of what?
I see.
I quite agree. You gain a point, and the subject. Thrills. I should explain that that Kenneth Williams is trying to give Clement Freud a thrill at this particular moment by putting his arm around him. But in spite of that, Clement will try and continue for 19 seconds, starting now.
The most beautiful and touching thrill is, quite frankly, to have Kenneth Williams as close as I have him at this moment. The feel of those gabardine trousers. Against...
Oh, Derek Nimmo has challenged. Why?
Absolute deviation.
You've never sat next to Kenneth Williams, so perhaps you don't know.
I have.
Look, it's whatever turns you on, so you leave it.
You see, however much you may feel this is a devious thought, a devious idea, and a very devious for the program, he has not yet deviated from the subject on the card, which is thrills. So, as I have to disagree with the challenge, Clement Freud gains another point, and there are 10 seconds left for thrills, Clement, starting now.
Slowly she crept down the passage with a chopper. Would it be the nun or the housekeeper, said the butler, quietly to the chambermaid. Neither!
If you want to read Clement Freud's new novel, it'll be published very shortly. And anyway, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes, by the way, the whistle tells us that 60 seconds is up, gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Clement Freud, so at the end of the first round, he has a commanding lead of 2 over everybody else. Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round, please? The subject, weekends. Will you talk about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
An end, I suppose, is a sort of terminus or final point. And a week indicates...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Sort of twice.
I beg your pardon?
Sort of twice.
I don't think so. Did you say sort of twice, Derek?
I hadn't thought that I had, but I'm
No, I
willing to
don't think
accept
that he had. I don't remember. Well tried, Kenneth.
A weekend is sort of, it's sort of, it's a...
Did he say sort of twice, audience? No, I don't think he did. Right, there are 49 seconds left, Derek, for weekends starting now.
And weak means feeble. Of course, it's one of the few words, if you think about it, Jared, that the French haven't got a better one for, because they have to call theirs La Weekend, which I think is tremendous.
Clement Freud, why are you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
It's called Le Weekend.
You're quite right, it is Le Weekend, not La. They make it a very masculine pursuit to take someone away for the weekend. Perhaps that's it. Anyway, Clement, I agree with your challenge. You'll gain a point, therefore, and there are 38 seconds... No. There are 43 seconds left for weekends starting now.
And even now at 25, he has to work to keep alive. Yes, all day long from 10 to 4 for half the week or even more, with but an hour or two to spend at luncheon with a city friend. This is probably the worst thing can happen to anybody. Thursday to Monday, nothing but pure enjoyment, pheasant shooting, hunting, running behind the hounds, skating over thin ice, racing after the neighbor's wife and her daughters, not to mention her Labrador.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
I'm totally bewildered, surely.
I think Clement Freud is pretty bewildered as well.
I mean,
What's it got to do with weekend? It's all the week he was talking about. Thursday, Friday, chase with the neighbours.
I thought it was a bit devious when he brought the Labrador in, I must say.
that was Sunday.
That was on Sunday. Well, all right. As he's gone a bit too far with his weekend, I think we'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say that you have a point and the subject of weekends. 10.5 seconds left, Kenneth, starting now.
Everyone packs their bags and their picnic hampers and off they go.
Derek Nimmer, you've challenged. Why?
Well, I don't, says devious.
Oh, what a decision to have to make. Very clever challenge, Derek. No points scored, and it's because it's a colloquial phrase he was using. And Kenneth continues with the subject. There's 6 seconds left for weekends starting now.
Roads jam-packed and trains carrying us all to the coast.
So, Kenneth was speaking then when the whistle went, so he gains that extra point. He's 1 point behind the leader at this present moment, who is still Clement Freud. Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. Can't. That is the subject. Can you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, I suppose if someone came up to you and gave you a great homily about think well of your neighbor and you will live a goodly life and Rolling Stones and they'll gather a moss and all that sort of old rubbish, you could say, what a load of cant. On the other hand, it does have connections with piety false and religious false. Religion, one might say,
Derek Nimmer, you've challenged. Why?
Religion of false.
Yes, you said false twice, I'm afraid. So, Derek, you gain a point and the subject, and 35 seconds left for can't, starting now.
Now, actually, when I was small, was taught to rhyme. I could never say canter properly, and I always used to call it cant, which is a rather curious thing to do, but it just so happened to me. And the canter...
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
No, he was going so fast that when he caught his breath, it sounded as if he was
wasn't
hesitating. No.
I see, I'm sorry.
You're in a very mocking mood today, Clement. Yes, definitely. Derek, you gain another point, and there are 26 seconds left for cant, starting now.
Well, the Canterbury trot was the slow, easy movement of horses which was used by the pilgrims on the way to the cathedral of that name, where I suppose they might have heard a lot of cant if they had not been very careful, I'm afraid, because sometimes even...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition of afraid.
Yes, you've been afraid more than once in your participation. And so, Clement, you gain another point. There are 14 seconds left for can't, starting now.
There are many parts of the country in which this word is actually the opposite of can. You go up to a chap and say, I wonder whether you'd be good enough to hold on to my horse while I go into the grocer's shop to buy 1.5 pounds of raspberry aid. And the man says, I can.
That was teetering on the edge of deviation. It's a very funny way of pronouncing it, whatever your accent. I can't do that. Anyway, Clement Freud was then again speaking when the whistle went, and he gains the extra point, and Derek Nimmo is going to begin the next round. The subject is breaking records. Can you talk to us about that, Derek, for 60 seconds starting now?
Of course, this is really the most tremendous fun, isn't it? You see, you go into your nearest record shop, you go over to a pile of 78, pick them up in the air, and go smash over the proprietor's head, and they get so surprised. Mind you, I went in the other day, and I said, could I have an LP of The Sound of Music? And the man said, certainly, and I paid him for it. I went outside, and I threw it on the floor with a tremendous bang, and he looked at me, and he said, why did you do that? And I said, well, I didn't see the film, did you? And he said, no. He said, why do you ask me that? I said, I have no idea, but it fills in a minute. And so...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
Well, to begin with, the record isn't broken. It was an LP of The Sound of Music, which is
Yes.
not made of a breakable substance.
Oh, it's true, yes, it's true. It was brilliant.
Yes, it won't break because you've got to melt it down, haven't you? That's right, yes. So, Clement, you get another point, and there are 32 seconds left for breaking record starting now.
The record that I would most like to break is mounting the Empire State Building by the service staircase. This is held at the moment by the Swedish Langlauf team returning from the 1936 Olympic Games in Vancouver. And I thought, when I looked at records that I might be able to break, this was one that I might achieve. And I therefore requested the guardian of the building situated on 5th Avenue and 54th Street.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Repetition of building, Empire State Building repetition. And then
That's right, yes, we've had building more than once. Well done, Derek. You get another point, and there are 3 seconds left for breaking record starting now.
I'd like to run the slowest mile of the year. Then I would...
Derek Nimmo gets the extra point for speaking when the whistle went, having got in just before it, and he's now 1 point behind Clement Freud, who's still in the lead. Denise Coffey, your turn to begin. Fallen Arches. Can you talk to us for 60 seconds on those, starting now?
Only this morning I looked at my feet and I said to myself, my arches are falling. Quite clearly, I'm getting old, I'd thought. Oh.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Well, I helped her out by repetition of thought.
Yes.
I
I buzzed myself,
She
actually.
buzzed herself, actually.
She buzzed herself. Well, I think that's the best thing to do. If you
She gets a point.
Yes,
She gets a
yes.
point.
I mean, after all, that if you buzz yourself for hesitation, and because you've hesitated before anybody else can buzz you for hesitation, you get a point. Yes, I agree with the challenge.
Is that your considered ruling? Can we hold you to that?
If you can manage to achieve it. Yes. Anyway, so Denise Coffey gets a point for, because I agree with her challenge. Does she get another point because I also, she has to continue? Oh no, she only gets 1 point. What a pity. Denise, the subject is Fallen Arches, and there are 50 seconds left starting now.
Not 100 yards or so from this very studio is a building known as The Arches, which is the subject of a very famous song, which perhaps the older members of the audience will remember. I have heard it. I wasn't actually there when it was first recorded. It's a beautiful song. And,
Clement Freud, why
Yes.
have you challenged?
Repetition of song.
Yes, yes, I'm afraid you did give
encore,
us...
as it's known.
Ah, yes, you should have challenged yourself on the song.
I'm
and
a
said,
fool,
yes.
myself.
So the best thing is to try challenging yourself always, Denise, and see what happens. You did say song more than once, so Clement Freud gets a point, and there are 33 seconds left for Fallen Arches, starting now.
The first time I suffered from this disease was in wonderful, wonderful Copenhagen.
Clement Freud has challenged himself.
4 repetitions.
Well done, Clement Freud. But I
Can
only
we
give...
pack up this idiocy now?
I only give bonus points to the ladies. When they challenge. And therefore, all that happens is I don't take the subject away from you, but you don't get any points for it, and you have 29 seconds left to continue with Fallen Arches starting now.
This is really a deviation from the norm. A foot which, instead of having 5 toes, an instep and a heel firmly on the ground, seems to have the instep, which I've already said is really the summary.
And Denise Coffey challenged you.
Like an arrow from a bow. Repetition.
Yes, yes.
Like
Thank
in
you.
first gear, I
Yes.
believe that. Yeah.
So your arrow gained you a point to Denise, and you have 16 and a half seconds to continue with your Fallen Arches, starting now. Someone has challenged Derek Nimmo.
Hesitation.
No, she didn't hesitate. She didn't get going. And the Mr. hadn't even started the clock. There are 11 seconds left for you to continue Denise with Fallen Arches, starting now. Derek Nimmo's challenged again. There's another point to Denise Coffey. There are 10 seconds for Fallen Arches, starting now.
Very up.
Clement Freud.
It's a repetition of that hesitation again.
In other words, you decided that you should give her a point as well, which is quite ungallant because it's drawing attention to the fact that she is now well in the game and quite likely to win any minute if you keep this up. There are 9 seconds left now, Denise. If you keep this up, you'll probably win because if you get 1 second every point, you see. 9 seconds for Fallen Arches, Denise. Starting now.
There is a cafe known as Archie's, or Arches, as the local people call it, where you can buy exceedingly fine buns, but unfortunately the gentleman who owns
Well, Denise's Fallen Arches brought her back into the game with a big burst on that occasion. She's now in a very definite third place, only 1 point behind Derek, who's just behind Clement, who's still in the lead, and Kenneth is just in 4th place. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? The subject is my ambition. Can we hear what it is in 60 seconds, starting now?
My ambition is to get a 4-poster bed and roll it from John of Groat's to Land's End. Many of you will think that this is a lukewarm, tepid, rather silly ambition for a grown man, and I think you have a point. But the night...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Well, I think I have a point.
He didn't mean that kind of point, so all I'd say is very nice, very well tried, but no points scored, because we can't when someone says he has a point. Clement continues with the subject, 42 seconds left. My ambition starting now.
And so my ambition is to take it via Wick, down to Aberdeen, and then Edinburgh, Berwick upon Tweed, Newcastle, and down along...
Derek Nimmo's challenge.
Repetition of down.
Yes, you've gone too far down. Derek, you gain a point, and you have 29 seconds left for my ambition starting now.
My ambition is to roll...
Can you challenge? Yes, there was a definite hesitation. He thought of his ambition and he came to a full stop. He's obviously achieved so much, he can't think of anything further. 25 seconds for you, Kenneth, on my ambition starting now.
My ambition would be to so control things that I could cut out of this global unnecessary noise. There's far too much of it about, and I scream and cry in the night. Oh, where is the peace my sequestering soul is needing? And if it were in my power to crown that, I would
I think you got a little off your ambition and just went, if you know what I mean. But it was lovely, Kenneth, and you gain an extra point for speaking when the whistle went and you come back in the game with a bang. And it is fairly close in the debate round with Clement Freud leading Derek Nimmo by 1 point. Kenneth Williams, it's your turn to begin. We'd like you to talk for 60 seconds on Friday if you can. Starting now.
It is known as Pay Day for many people. The day on which a man...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Payday for many people. The day on which.
The day on which. There are 2 days.
Pay Day is hyphenated, you great nit. It's completely different.
It is.
Hyphenated.
I know.
Good grain, I know. There you are, you can hear them. They're all on about it.
But basically, I can only judge on what we hear, so I give you benefit of the doubt when it's a colloquial phrase you use, and therefore we cannot get literary and say, because it's a hyphenated word, it is not repetitious. Derek Nimmo, I agree with your challenge. You gain a point, and there are 53 seconds left for Friday, starting now.
Friday is named after a lady called Frigg, who was married to Odin, one of those other strange Nordic gods and goddesses. Now, I would like to tell you what it is called in the theatre. It's called the one on which...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition.
Of what? Called. You're perfectly correct, and you gain a point, and there are 41 seconds left for Friday, Clement, starting now.
During the holidays, we get up very early on Friday, and we go out fishing for eel. Now, this we do on Friday because my wife is a Catholic, and therefore the children can only eat fish.
Derek, now you've challenged twice.
Well, in the Pope's encyclical, he allowed Catholics to eat.
Exactly,
He said
yes,
that-
that's true. They come out with that. Yes, that's
Sorry, Clem.
I was in the past tense.
What did you say? You said that...
It was a very favourite day of the week because we used to go out and...
No, you said it is a very favourite day of the week.
No.
And we go on the holidays, you said, and we go out, and because she is a good Catholic, she always has
No,
fish.
she's no longer a Catholic, you see. Is that true?
I'm not going to let you
Yes,
get away with
Pope's
that.
encyclical.
If
No,
you can
don't-
change your wife's religion for the sake of gaining a point,
No.
I am not going to allow that.
Phone her. Nick, phone her.
I'm going to let Derek Nimmo have a point on that, and there are 17 seconds left for Friday, Derek, starting now.
This time last Friday, I was staying on the island of Shuna in the Inner Hebrides, a most beautiful strip of land 3 miles by 1.5.
Kenneth Williams' wife, you challenge.
Dear Ocean, somebody's Friday, not a beautiful strip of land. We're not interested in geography. Nothing to do with it. Friday is the subject.
I said
I think
no.
those strips of land, dear. Strips of land.
Kenneth.
Friday.
Kenneth.
Friday.
Yes, last Friday he was on this beautiful strip of land. So Derek Nimmo has another point, and there are 2 seconds left for Friday, Derek, starting now.
When the ghost walks is a term used in this.
So Derek was speaking then when the whistle went and gains an extra point. He now leads Clement Freud by 2 at the end of that round, and Denise Coffey and Kenneth Williams are equal in 3rd place, a little way behind. And Denise Coffey, your turn to begin. Postman's knock. Can you talk to us about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
I am never privileged to hear the postman's knock in my house because I have a bell which he rings. But in the country, I believe it's a great event when the people see the bringer of letters approaching their farm gate, and upon which he hammers with his boot, scaring away the dog which is ready to pounce upon him.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
She's talking about Postman's kick.
Well, in my imagination, he took his boot off and hammered on the door, which I thought was a very strange process, and he might well have done it. He might have a special boot for hammering on doors. So I don't think it was devious, and there are 42 seconds for Denise to continue with Postman's knock, starting now.
It is a parlour game which one used to play at parties.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation, I'm playing it tonight.
Not at this present moment, I
There's
hope.
nothing in the past tense about Postman's knock.
No. In that sense, technically, it is devious, but she was not really deviating from the subject on the card, because in her family, it might mean that she used to play it. So
It was a
she's-
tradition.
It's a
The way
tradition.
we used to be Catholics, you mean?
I wish you wouldn't bring that one up again. So Denise continues with Postman's knock for 38 seconds, starting now.
It's very embarrassing when you're at the age of 2 or 3, well, which I was when I first...
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, I think that
Yes.
time it was a hesitation.
It was.
So Clement gets the point this time, and he has 33 seconds to continue with Postman's knock, starting now.
This is a game in which men and women partake. Those of the male sex, masculine, or ones with protruding Adam's apples, tend to send one representative outside the door, while the females of the species remain inside. A message is portrayed through the...
Do I have a challenge?
What deviation? Messages are never portrayed. Messages portrayed. Conveyed they can be. Messages portrayed.
Just
Well,
a
whenever
minute,
portrayed.
Kenneth, don't go on, please. I agree, a message can be portrayed, but in Postman's knock, you cannot portray a message.
We have house rules.
And I think you were about to say it was portrayed through the door.
Oh, yes, portrayed through the door.
So, Kenneth, I agree with you. You have 6.5 seconds to continue with Postman's knock, starting now.
He knocks on the door and my heart leaps out. Something, oh, it's a letter from me. What will it say? Postal order, perhaps? Maybe a lovely big check. Oh, the joy of love.
Well, that, I'm afraid, is all we have time for in this particular edition of Just a Minute. So let me give you the final score. In second place, equal were Denise Coffey and Kenneth Williams. And I think a very, very fair result. They were both second to two joint winners, our two great exponents of the game, Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo, who were absolutely equal winners. I'm afraid, alas, we have no more time to play Just a Minute today. We do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of the game, and from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch. Present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Andre Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, I'm going to ask these four clever exponents of the game to try and talk for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject that I will give them without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. If one of the other three think he's guilty or she is guilty of doing this, they may challenge by pressing a buzzer which they have in their hand. If I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. If I disagree with the challenge, whoever is speaking will gain a point and keep the subject and continue. That is the way we play, and that's the way we score. And let us begin the show this week with Andre Melly. Andre, the subject is admirable virtues. Can you talk about admirable virtues for 60 seconds, starting now?
The virtue that I think is most admirable is moral courage. That is, if you're a woman and invited to appear on Just a Minute, and you have the guts to stand up to Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
She's sitting down.
She is sitting down, so I will give you a bonus point for a witty challenge, because I know that she was speaking metaphorically of standing up to somebody in a game, and therefore, Andre, you continue with the subject with 47 seconds left. Admirable virtues starting now.
And you dare to insist that you buzzed your buzzer before Clement Freud.
Oh, Derek Nimmo, you've challenged.
Repetition buzzers.
No, she said buzzed your buzzer. There was a buzz,
Well,
the
again,
verb, and the buzzer, the noun. So Andre gets a point because I disagree with the challenge and continues with the subject with 43 seconds left. Admirable virtues starting now.
And Derek Nimmo challenges you very unfairly.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition of Derek Nimmo.
No, she said Clement Freud and Kenneth Williams before, didn't you?
Derek Nimmo?
And Derek Nimmo.
You did. Oh, she's honest. That's it. That's very fair. Give her a round of applause for honesty. Moral courage. There, you'll see where the audience sympathies lie the next time there's a tricky decision. Who challenged, by the way? Clement Freud. Clement, you gain a point, and there are 41 seconds left for admirable virtues starting now.
Modesty compels me to admit that I have these. In particular, I am...
Absolutely dried himself up,
I
didn't he?
simply couldn't think
Andre
of a
Melly
single
has a
admirable
challenge.
virtue.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. Once he tried to think of his own admirable virtues.
I thought it summed up my admirable virtues very well.
Very, very
Why
well.
you should call it hesitation.
Yes. Well, all right. So, Andre, you gain the subject back. I agree with your challenge, and you have another point, and there are 32 seconds for admirable virtues starting now.
Being a bit rude, I think this is really to be admired. This saves you going to...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Admired.
Admired? When did she
courage.
say? Beg your pardon?
With the moral courage.
Yes, she did talk about the virtue that she admires most is moral courage right at the beginning. You're quite right, Derek. Well listened. You gain a point, and you have 27 seconds for admirable virtues starting now.
If I have a fault, which I haven't, it would be modesty. But in fact, I am extraordinarily virtuous. Do you know, I get up every morning rising from my knees because I've been at prayer through the long night hours, washed my hands because cleanliness is next to godliness, and then I set off on my task through the day, patting small children on the head, talking to little dogs as they walk along the street, giving them the occasional bone, perhaps a biscuit if they look hungry, taking tramps home.
That touching and moving, and I'm surely totally incorrect description of yourself gains you not only 1 point for the subject, but another bonus point because you were speaking when the whistle went, Derek, and you now are the leader. Kenneth Williams, it is your turn to begin, and I'm delighted we're going to hear from you.
Yes, so am I. I've been waiting for hours.
And I think Ian Messert has thought out a subject specially for you.
Ah.
It's sex appeal. You got a bit cold.
No, I'm fine.
Oh, good, good. I'm sure you can go magnificently on this subject. Just think about yourself, Kenneth, and talk for 60 seconds on sex appeal starting now.
Well, this is almost impossible to define because it depends largely on your proclivities. What you find exciting in the way of sex. I think the best way is to define by example, i.e. I have sex appeal. Friends have said to me after a long acquaintanceship, it was as much as I could do to keep my hands off you. Oh, you in the room, you really get me throbbing. And of course, with my repeated performances, both on the stage and off the stage, I have had...
Andre Melly's challenge.
Yes, she would have. So he plays the game to score.
What do you play for, Kenneth?
No, I play to entertain. I'm interested in scoring. No, I'll give it all the points. I'll give them away. I'm not bothered.
No. Well, anyway, Andre challenge. Andre?
Well, it was repeated performances. So it's repetition.
No,
on and off the
he
stage.
wasn't. He repeated the word stage, but not the word performance.
Repeated performances on and off the stage.
It's a sort of...
Yes, but repeated performances is not being repetitious. The word stage was repetitious. You said repeated performances. He didn't repeat that word.
Repeated.
Yes, but that's a phrase. It's not repeating the word, which is the way we play the game.
Oh,
he
well,
repeated the word stage twice, and that would be repetition. So, Kenneth, you have a point, and you keep the subject. And there are 20 seconds left for sex appeal starting now.
Throughout the age.
Clement Freud, you've challenged.
He's not playing it for points. I am.
And all that happens is you're given a point to Kenneth Williams.
Oh.
They're just such a great mouth. Go on.
Kenneth keeps the subject, and there are 18 seconds left for sex appeal starting now.
Many people have associated this with the hirsute, and they've said, if you're airy, you've got it. People will come after you. And the same thing, of course, does apply with Samson and Delilah, because she is reputed to have cut it off with the idea...
Well, you talking about Samson there, what a strength there. You started with the subject and you finished with the subject. That was strength, it was sex appeal, it was panache, it was success. Derek Nemo, your turn to begin. The subject is staying happy. Can you tell us about staying happy in just 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, of course, that was the part I first played when I was in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And ever since then, I've wanted to perform in exactly the same role, because staying happy seems to me to be the most pleasant part in that particular show. If we were going to cast it here this afternoon, for instance, of course, the lovely lady here on my right would play the lady who was named after the snowflake. What?
Kenneth Williams, your challenge.
The lovely lady on my right would play the lady, two ladies.
Yes, there were two ladies. You're quite right, Kenneth. Yes, well done. So I agree with your challenge. You gain a point, and there are 40 seconds for staying happy, Kenneth, starting now.
The only way anyone can stay happy is, of course, to commit abnegation apropos self. This has long been realised to be the cure. What, you know, why are you all looking at me? Why are you all looking at me? Come on. If I
I'll tell you why we were all looking, because of your wonderful phrase, abnegation apropos self.
I don't think it's
I
funny
don't
about
think
that.
any literary crank would have written such a phrase in a book, and you spoke it with great style.
Well, you've got to keep
It was
going, haven't you? I think it's awful
utterly
that they all
unfair.
turn.
It was utterly unfair. It was beautifully done, and we loved it. And you're going to keep going. I'm going to ignore the challenge. I know what it was. And you have 27 seconds to continue with staying happy, Kenneth, starting now.
Unhappiness is most of the time born of selfishness and the regard for one's own person. We should be continually thinking of others. How can I submerge my own trouble in the problem of some other person?
Derek Nimmer, you challenge her.
Tradition of person.
Yes, there was a hell of an hesitation as well.
That's a sort of...
So anyway, well tried. They enjoyed the little homily, I'm sure. So Derek got you that time. I agree with the challenge. Derek, you gain a point. You take over the subject. Staying happy. 4 seconds left, starting now.
Mushrooming makes me more happy than anything else in the whole...
Kent Williams, why have you challenged?
It was completely indecipherable. One couldn't
I know. What was it? Mushrooms?
Mushrooming makes me more... I was going
Oh,
to...
he was absolutely right. It was mushrooms.
Yes.
Well, I couldn't understand a word of it.
Well, I
So
can't
why do
understand what
why
you
do
say.
challenge, Kenneth? Challenge. Why do challenge?
Oh, deviation.
Because you couldn't understand. I'm afraid you can't do that. You can't do that. Derek has a point, and there are 2 seconds left for staying happy, starting now.
When one goes out on the golf links to pick out...
So Derek was speaking, but only just then when the whistle went, and he's now crept into the lead at the end of that round. And Andre, your turn to begin. Witchcraft. Can you talk to us about witchcraft for 60 seconds, starting now?
If you are a witch and you want something nasty to happen to people, you have to think up a little rhyme like, May Ken and Clem refuse to speak, and Nicholas Parsons fall asleep, and Derek Nimmer.
Derek Nimmer, you've challenged by.
Hesitation.
Yes, but, oh, it was so lovely, wasn't it? How did it go on? Have you got it all worked out or not?
Derek Stammer, be infinite, and then I'll win this just a minute.
You see, she paused, Derek, because she was building to something. But anyway, it was a legitimate challenge, and you gain a point. 31 seconds left, Derek Nimmer, for witchcraft, starting now.
If you're indulging in witchcraft, you should form yourself rapidly into a coven. That means 13 people, 12 of whom are the group, the main body of the assembly.
Andre Mel, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
I agree, you get the subject back, and you have a point, of course. 21 seconds for witchcraft, Andre, starting now.
Vampires are a very important part of this particular subject. I was once a bride of Dracula, so I know quite a lot about it. You have to have a pair of fangs which are fitted onto your eye teeth, a coffin. You're particularly frightened of the cross.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Hesitation. Of the cross. Yes, it was definitely there.
The audience, do you think she hesitated?
Oh, it's no good asking them. You're going to laugh at
Well, when it is so doubtful.
no, when it is... back row all gone over. There's sawdust pouring out of one of them up there. BBC just put these dummies in. They prop them up in the back row.
No, I disagree. Andre has another point, and there are 4 seconds left for witchcraft, Andre, starting now.
If holy water is thrown in your face, your whole visage disintegrates into...
Andre Melly was speaking then with the whistle went, so she gains an extra point, and she's creeping up a little. Clement, will you begin the next round, please? Filibustering. Can you talk to us about filibustering? For just a minute, starting now.
Filibustering is a political maneuver whereby one man talks for so long that having read the small print and being unable to be interrupted, he has the floor and speaks until such time as the close of whatever He is indulging.
Andre Melly challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. So he was trying to filibuster there, but unsuccessfully. So Andre gains a point and takes over the subject. 42 seconds left, starting now.
This is something I believe that senators of the South...
Kenneth Williams got in first. Hesitation. Kenneth, you gain a point and take over the subject of filibustering. 37 seconds left, starting now.
One of the most famous occasions was in the 19th century in our own House of Commons when the Prime Minister, who was called Disraeli...
Clement Freud challenged. Yes, there was a slight hesitation. He was searching for his name.
I wasn't searching for his name. What are you talking about? It's about what he said. Overcome by the exuberance of his own verbosity. It's what Disraeli said. I knew exactly what I was going to say. Can't call that hesitation. She said an and you didn't even allow it. And you allowed this knuckle who were half asleep to say that she was hesitating. I've hardly got a word in on this programme anyway. I've hardly spoken. First 5 minutes, I'm not even on.
I'm so upset now, Kenneth. I don't know what to do. You've struck me. I'll ask the audience. He's had such an effect on me. I'm going to let you be the judge. I must say that I definitely thought there was a hesitation there. And I must say, I want it all together, because I definitely think there was a hesitation, but let you be the final judges. If you think there was a hesitation, will you cheer? If you don't think there was a hesitation, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? You don't think there was a hesitation? The boos came through the tears that he created in your eyes. Kenneth, on your side, you have another point, and you have 24 seconds left for filibustering, starting now.
One is reminded of that great liberal statesman, Gladstone, when he said, I care as much for the spiritual welfare of the people on the slopes.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Well, he wasn't filibustering. He was just making a speech.
Ah, but you might...
Filibustering is to talk unnecessarily and prolong your speech for long periods.
Yes, no, but I don't
There
think
were
you
several interruptions during it.
Yes, and I do think...
You don't allow interruptions.
There were probably some political people of the time who said that when Gladstone was speaking that particular speech, he was what we now call filibustering. Have I made my point? Yeah. Good. Kenneth Williams has a point, and he has 10 seconds to continue with filibustering, starting now.
The thing to do is to make a point and then so ornament it.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Repetition of point.
Yes, he has said point before. Derek Nimmo gains it, and he has 4 seconds to continue with filibustering, starting now.
From the French word filibuster, which means freebooter.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
It isn't.
It is.
Deviation.
I think it was a French word meaning freebooter. It was a boat that was sent out to fight as a freelance against other countries who weren't your own country's enemies.
Extremely interesting, Derek. You have another point and 2 seconds to continue with filibustering, starting now.
One of the most famous filibusters in our time.
At the end of that round, Derek Nimmo has a very definite lead over everybody else. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? In fact, it's your turn to begin the next round, and the subject is Nell Gwynn. Can you tell us something about the lovely lady in 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, when the dreadful thing of regicide occurred, and we had the Great Rebellion, the king came back and, of course, was called...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Repetition, because if there'd been regicide, he couldn't have come back. He was dead.
I said we had the dreadful regicide, and
then
the
king
Great
came back.
Rebellion. Then the Great
He was
Rebellion.
talking about
The king is
regicide
dead,
and
long
rebellion.
live the king. I mean, this...
And the king came back.
All right.
No, I disagree with the challenge. Kenneth has a point, and there are 50 seconds left for Nell Gwynn, Kenneth, starting now.
Charles II, who was married to Catherine of Braganza, didn't seem to have seen very much of her, and she lived apart from the court. He took this mistress, who was called Nell Gwynn, and sometimes Sweet Nell of Old Drury, comical actress, and she sold oranges. Anyway, she did bear him these 2 children. What Catherine of Braganza thought of all this, nobody seems to know.
Clement Freud, you challenge.
Repetition.
Yes.
Ah, but she's on the card.
No, Catherine of Braganza's not on the
Catherine of
card. Catherine of Braganza's not on the card.
She was on the cards for him. It was on the cards he should have.
If you had said that as a challenge, I'd have given you a point for wit. But all that happens is that Clement Freud gets a point, and he takes over the subject of Nell Gwynn with 23 seconds left, starting now.
One now thinks rather lovingly about characters like Nell Gwynn.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Because deviation, we don't think lovingly about Nell Gwynn at all.
Why not? Why not, Kenneth?
Rubbish, wasn't it?
Why shouldn't you think lovingly?
Because she was a dirty person.
He's a
That's right. People sleep with people, other men's wives,
Yes,
kids. It's a disgrace. Thoroughly immoral and disgraceful, and ushered in a pleasure-loving reign such as would disgrace any country.
Yes,
Disgrace.
but even people who you can... Stop being so pompous in your decision, your opinions. But even some people you think are rather immoral or you disapprove of, often, in retrospect, look back rather lovingly, you know. And I therefore disagree with what you said and agree with the fact that Clement Freud has a point, because he was speaking then, and he continues with Nell Gwynn, and there are 18 seconds left, starting now.
And yet, if you think about life in the 17th century, with no personal hygiene, with no...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation. Life in the 17th century and no personal hygiene is nothing to do with the subject, which is Nell Gwynn.
Well, after what you just said, I was saying an awful lot to do with this.
It's having kids by other people's husbands is nothing to do with personal hygiene.
You use the word...
It's been going
never
on
have
generation after
You'd
generation.
never have kids if you had
Why don't you
personal
shut up? He's the chairman. Get a word in, and
Kenneth, why don't you shut up? I'm the chairman.
Sorry.
No, I think, after what you said, personal hygiene does come into this. You admitted it. Right, the word you said about being a dirty person. That was your very first word.
I meant immoral, dear, not filthy.
Well, all right, you used the word dirty. Therefore, I disagree with your challenge. Clement Freud has another point, and there are 12 seconds left for Nell Gwynn. Clement, starting now.
Nell Gwynn, in a nutshell, was dirty.
Kenneth Gwynn, why have you challenged?
Well, I mean, it's deviation. She could never have been inside a nutshell. Oh, let's get dirty in it.
All right, he gets the bonus point for wit. But Clement Freud keeps the subject as he wasn't actually deviating from the subject on the card, and he continues with 9 seconds left for Nell Gwynn, starting now.
She was even improper outside such an encasement. She would not have brushed her teeth, seldom have changed her underwear.
Well, I'm glad those two on that side of the stage got off Nell Gwynn before we got really into rather embarrassing waters. Well, at the end of that round, Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went, so he gains an extra point. It's very interesting now, because Kenneth has crept up dramatically. He's in third place, behind the joint leaders at the present moment.
Third place, big deal.
Right, Derek Nomer, your turn to begin. Coup de grace. Can you talk about that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, I was standing in Stepson Park in Liverpool, you see, and this fellow come up to me. He said, "What are you standing there for?" And I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I don't know, really." And he said, "Why? I can't see your head at all because all the stuff's growing up all round about you. Why don't you cut the grass?" And I said, "I will in a few minutes." But actually, if you go to a bull ring in Spain, when the matador delivers his final blow, he has a special sword, which is so constructed with a little hook over the top of it, and as he pulls it into the bull's neck, it severs the...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition of bull.
Yes, that is perfectly right. I'm glad you challenged before we got any further into the bull's neck. It was, Clement, I agree with your challenge. You take over the subject. There are 34 seconds left for a coup de grace, starting now.
This was delivered upon the premises of Mrs. Hebblewhite, landlady of 82 Blackpool Road, Morecambe Bay, Lancashire, by a villainous tenant who set fire to a mattress in the basement. As a result, the fire engines were called out.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Mentions of fire.
He said fire and fire engines.
Yes, well, I said bull and bull ring, so I mean...
Same thing.
No, a fire engine is...
So it's bull and bull.
That's right, yes, I thought fire engines and hyphenated. Well, you're quite right, there are two fires. That's right, because it's two words, isn't it? Therefore, I agree. Kenneth, you gain a point. And there are 16 seconds left for a coup de grace, starting now.
Well, roughly speaking, of course, it means the final.
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
Deviation.
Why?
Roughly speaking.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep to a subject.
Yes, but he can speak roughly, without deviating from the subject, and he can keep going.
It's been
Very
said.
good, Chairman. You're very good, Chairman. Very good.
I'm always good when I'm giving the point
No,
to
I
everybody.
wouldn't want your job. I really wouldn't. I find it difficult. I would find it difficult.
Anyway, Kenneth, you have another point, and you have 14 seconds left for a coup de grace starting now.
The blow, so to speak, which settles the entire controversy and results in the adversary being vanquished.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Bad word.
Adversary. Yes.
Adversary, I said.
Yes. Well, it sounded slightly different. We knew what you were saying, and you were keeping going under very difficult circumstances.
Thank you. You're very good, Chairman.
You know there aren't many seconds left. You know it's very neck and neck. So you have another point with 3 seconds left, Kenneth, for a coup de grace starting now.
And if you can so encapsulate your point...
Well,
Am I in the lead? Am I in the lead now?
Let me tell them something, because that is the end of the show. I got a note here which says,
no.
wind up at the end of this subject.
No, that's pronounced wind.
I know. I thought I'd make a little joke. So I'm going to wind up now and tell you that I'm afraid that is all we have time for, and what, as Kenneth encapsulated his final point, he gave a very dramatic and sudden twist to the game. He was trailing in 4th place nearly all the way along. But now in 4th place, alas, is Andre Melly. And in 3rd place is Derek Nimmo. And in 1st place, joint equals, Kenneth jumped into the lead alongside Clement Freud. And those are our 2 winners this week, Kenneth and Clement. And they both won by 1 encapsulated point only. That is all we have time for. We do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute. And from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett. Present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Andre Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, I'm going to ask these 4 clever exponents of the game to try and talk for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject that I will give them without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. If one of the other 3 think he's guilty or she is guilty of doing this, they may challenge by pressing a buzzer which they have in their hand. If I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. If I disagree with the challenge, whoever is speaking will gain a point and keep the subject and continue. That is the way we play, and that's the way we score. And let us begin the show this week with Andre Melly. Andre, the subject is avoiding income tax. That's got a reaction from the audience already. But can you talk to us about it, Andre, for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is something that people who don't pay as you earn, but are supposed to cough up after they have, are very good at doing. There are several ways. One is by appearing absolutely idiotic and moronic and writing to the Inland Revenue saying...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
Hesitation, I'm saying.
No, you said deviation.
I meant hesitation. I stumbled over the word. I meant hesitation.
Hesitation, he stumbled over the word.
You stumbled over the word, and Andre has been away from us for a long time, and so I'm going to be very tough with you, Clement, because you said
yes, you're
repetition
quite right.
first.
A good decision.
What a sporting player you are, Clement. We love having you around. I'm going to disagree with the challenge because his first word was repetition, and Andre gains a point and keeps the subject. There are 42 seconds left, Andre, for avoiding income tax, starting now.
You begin the letter by saying, Dear Commissioner, I'm terribly sorry I haven't yet paid, but I don't quite understand about those dependent relatives and other sources of income, and if you could just...
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
Income is on... It was a repeat of income, but I see it's on the...
It is one of these.
So she gets another point.
Yes. You are allowed to repeat.
Yes, of course. No,
I know you know that, but there might be somebody
listening
who
doesn't. Absolutely right.
I haven't said it yet. There might be somebody listening who doesn't know that you are allowed to repeat the subject on the card more than once. And so Clement Freud was a bit too keen with his buzzer then, which means that Andre Miller gets another point and continues for 32 seconds, avoiding income tax starting now.
A very good ploy is to say that you're very willing to pay, but not going to do it just now, and you go on avoiding the fatal day, if possible, until after you're dead. Then...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Station.
It was very doubtful. I think she was taking a breath. I don't think she quite hesitated. She was very close to it, so I disagree with the challenge. Andre gets another point, and there are 18 seconds left, Andre, for avoiding income tax starting now.
When the requests get redder and redder, a very good idea.
Derek Nimmo, you challenged.
Well, redder,
everybody
redder.
challenged. Your buzzer came on first. So red and redder is repetition, and there are 16 seconds left, Derek. A point to you. You take over avoiding income tax starting now.
I used to go along and see my commissioner in Lime Street in Liverpool with a great big paper bag full of bus tickets and old...
Clement Freud challenge. Why?
Hesitation.
He's being too keen. He got in on something else, and then he decided... I think he was actually anticipating the fact that Derek was going to say something else. No, he didn't hesitate, Clement, so Derek gets another point. No. He did not hesitate. And he keeps the subject with 10 seconds left for avoiding income tax, Derek, starting now.
I always put down on my income tax form that I have 7 wives, 48 children.
Andre Melly, why have you challenged?
A repetition of marriage.
Oh, very clever. All right, give her a... The audience obviously agree that you should have a point there for a clever challenge, but he's not, strictly speaking, deviating from the subject on the card.
A repetition, I said.
No, it's too late now. You can't... No, you've got a point for being clever, but the subject stays with Derek, with 4 seconds left, avoiding income tax starting now.
If you set up a company in the Cayman Islands, you will find this most advantageous.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
The Cayman Islands.
Why?
He must mean the Cayman Islands, and it was deviation from the norm of the word. There are no Cayman Islands.
That's right.
That's Cayman
right.
pepper.
It's the Cayman Islands. You're quite right. Well done, Clement. So you gain a point for that. With 2 seconds left, Clement, avoiding income tax starting now.
Ideally, you do this by not working.
Well, Clement Freud achieved then very cleverly what he often endeavours to do, and that is to get in just before the whistle goes. The whistle tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking at that particular moment gains an extra point. So, Clement, at the end of that round, Andre Melly has a commanding lead of 2 over everybody else. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? Things that come through the post. Can you talk to us about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
Now, if ever this should happen to you, I want you to write immediately to the Postmaster General, because it is absolutely illegal to send things through the post, especially when they come. This is entirely against the public interest. It is disgusting, it's wrong, and if you do...
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
You stated it's deviation. You said it's illegal to send things to the post. Of course it's not.
It's not illegal to send things through the post in the way that he was putting it. It is not illegal, therefore it is devious, Clement. So Kenneth gains a point and he takes over the subject. What you were describing is not illegal. Therefore, Kenneth, I don't think it's possible. It's certainly not illegal. There are 37 seconds, Kenneth, for you. Things that come through the post starting now.
Well, of course, books are one of the things that come through my letterbox, and I greatly welcome them because I am an avid reader, and I always say to the postman, "Oh, thank you for bringing this brief chronicle, because I'm deeply grateful, trudging as you do through the early morning mist and cold, sometimes wet, and yet unfailingly 8:15 rat, tat, and through the box it comes."
I must say you had us all on tenterhooks then. Any minute I thought you were going to dry, especially when you got to rat-tat. He's the only person who gets a rat-tat on his door because he plays his game. Everyone else is a rat-tat-tat. Anyway, well done, Kenneth. You kept going and you gained a point for speaking when the whistle went, and you are now equal in second place alongside Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo, but you're all 3 behind our lady who is still in the lead, Andre Melly.
Disgraceful.
It's not. It's brilliant. It is not.
Ah, it's got about a twist.
Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. The subject is Saturday night. Can you talk to us about Saturday night for 60 seconds, starting now?
It is generally associated in this country with a sort of free-for-all, doubtless because the working week has ended and people throw off restraint. Saturday is derived from day of Saturn, and night I need not interpret for you. And it is significant that Saturnalia is the feast of unbridled pleasure, where you really let your hair down and throw your bonnet, so to speak, over the windmill. This seems very prevalent, I've noticed, around Piccadilly on the aforementioned...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Deviation, there's no windmill in Piccadilly.
I think you quite well established, throw your bonnet over the windmill, and then you went on to Piccadilly. So, Derek, you gain a point, and the subject, and there are 11 seconds left for Saturday night. Oh, no, wait a minute. You said, so to speak, over the windmill, so you didn't establish that it was the specific
The reality of a windmill, exactly.
and not a reality of a windmill.
No.
No. So,
that's right.
therefore, we disagree with the challenge, and Kenneth gets another point, and he keeps...
Oh, that's nice, isn't it, though? Very good, Chairman.
12 seconds left for Saturday night, Kenneth, starting now.
Sometimes it's been called the loneliest night of the week. And that has been, on one or two occasions, my own experience. I have sat alone.
Well, Kenneth was speaking then when the whistle went, so he gains yet another point.
Gone into the lead.
Into the lead, equal with Andre Melly.
Oh, again.
Derek Nimmo, you once had cramp in the middle of a program. You once had pins and needles in the middle of a program. And this time Ian Messett has chosen pins and needles for you. Can you talk to us about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, of course, pins and needles are very sharp objects, both of them, really. I think particularly pins are very amusing bits of wire that you can poke into an adjacent bottom if you happen to see one coming by. Now, I do find that rather a lark, you know, really. Needles can be similarly placed if you feel like it. And one thing I saw once on a train coming down from the Outer Hebrides was a man...
Clement Roy, why have you challenged?
There's no train service to the Outer Hebrides.
coming down short.
I think on this occasion, Derek, you quite firmly established the train was coming down from the Outer Hebrides, so I agree that is deviation. Clement Freud has a point, and there are 37 seconds for pins and needles, Clement, starting now.
This is a strange muscular sensation which you get from time to occasion when the entire leg, arm, or other limb is pulsating with an extraordinarily painful feeling, causing you as often as not to jump up and down, to leap sideways and thence, to...
Kenneth Williams hesitation, yes, he was doing so well. I think it was almost deserved a bonus that time and occasion. Anyway, Kenneth, you gain a point, and you take over the subject with 8 seconds left for pins and needles, starting now.
One of the favourite pastimes of a person I knew was to take a piece of material for ornament.
Well, as Kenneth Williams was speaking then, when the whistle went, he gains yet another point, and he increases his lead to 3 over everybody else at the end of that round.
Oh, look good, though.
Andre Melly, your turn to begin. The subject is books I read twice. Can you talk to us about those books, Andre, for 60 seconds, starting now?
Apply Dapply and other nursery rhymes, Bar Bar and Father Christmas.
Derek Nimmo's challenged.
Repetition of bar.
Yes, you shouldn't have chosen that one. That is, unfortunately, repetition because it was, unfortunately, so near the beginning. Derek, you have a point, and you have 54 seconds for books I read twice, starting now.
A.P. Jones Smith's history
Andre
of...
Melly, you challenge.
A hesitation.
Yes,
before
I think
the
there was
Jones.
a hesitation, yes. It was just. It was borderline, but it was just. 51 seconds left for you, Andre, to take back Books I Read Twice, starting now.
Peter Rabbit and Two Bad Mice. These are the kind of books I have to read.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Two Bad Mice, repetition.
Yes, but she wasn't deviating from Books I Read Twice. Too bad might sound repetitious, but all that happens is Andre gets another point because she wasn't, strictly speaking, deviating from the subject. And therefore, there are 47 seconds to continue, Andre, starting now.
Because my daughter, who is 2.5, likes to hear a book several times read by me. I am particularly fond of Appley Dapley, which is the shortest.
Clement Freud got in first.
Well, we've had an Appley Dapley.
Yes, we've had Appley Dapley before, unfortunately. So, Clement,
Well, she was reading it twice.
What's that?
I said she was reading it twice.
Yes, but she's not allowed to say it twice in this program. Therefore, Clement, you gain a point. You take over the subject. 36 seconds left. Books I Read Twice, starting now.
I'm not particularly repetitious, and there are therefore few books I have read twice.
Derek Nimmo challenge.
Well, within the rules, repetition.
It's
It's what, Clement? Justify. Go on, try if you can. Justify.
the subject on the card.
The subject on the card is Books I Read Twice.
Yes.
Go on, justify.
The only words I repeated were the words on the card.
Books I Read Twice.
Oh, it's
Actually, you did say have.
What's that,
You
Derek?
did say have as well.
He said books, I read twice.
I
twice.
have read.
Oh, yes, he did. I'm sorry, Clement.
You can't give it for have. You just
Well, have
said
is
one
not
can't
the
give
You
it
said
for
have twice.
Yes.
Yes, well, that is repetition.
But
It's
you
not
said
on the
if
card.
you don't give it for little words like
I'll
have.
tell you what I will do. No. I'll tell you what I will do. I think it was such a clever try, and rather than give a point either against you or for you for your cleverness, we'll score no points. I think that's the fair thing. Don't you agree, audience?
Yes.
Very fair, because it was a very clever piece of, and we love to hear new thoughts coming into the program. So, Clement, you continue with the subject. There are 37 seconds left for Books I Read Twice, starting now.
Rereading Oliver Twist, I did find it an extraordinarily objectionable.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Well, I thought a pause, but I'm sure that I'm on a losing wicket.
You're not, actually. There was a very doubtful hesitation which I gave against you, and this was a borderline case which I consider was just, but only just hesitation. So, Derek, you gain a point, and there are 20 seconds left for Books I Read Twice, starting now.
The book that I read twice most recently was A.P. Fitzherbert's wonderful account of railways in the Outer Hebrides. This was a book that gave me enormous pleasure.
Freud, you've challenged twice.
Deviation.
Why, Clement?
The book does not exist, nor do the railways.
Well, I can only assume, as the railways don't exist, the book cannot exist. So, therefore, I must
That
assume...
is written by A.P. Jones Smith earlier on.
We didn't get as far as the Hebrides at that time. That was going to the history
He
of
was
the
so...
Cairn Islands.
I know what was going on in Dave's mind. I must explain, because one gets to know them fairly well. He was so needled about this decision that went against him when he was not allowed to take his train for the Outer Hebrides. He had to get back on the subject and talk about...
There were trains in the Outer Hebrides. They were
Yes, but there wasn't a book by A.P. Jones on the trains in the Outer Hebrides.
Prove it.
What? Fortunately, I'm not obliged to prove it, and secondly, I haven't got the time. I'm going to stick my neck out and give a point to Clement Freud and say there are 12 seconds left for Books I Read Twice, Clement, starting now.
Martin Chuzzlewit in bed when I took up the volume and turned
Andre
the
Mary, why do
pages.
A
challenge?
sort of hesitation when he took it up.
There was a sort of hesitation when he took it up, but it was...
We can't keep challenging on this sort of hesitation. Either somebody hesitates or they don't. I mean, what are we doing? A sort of hesitation.
Well-
A slight hesitation. Well, are we having hesitation as a rule?
She's
or
having
not?
hesitation, but she was modestly suggesting it was a borderline case, and I quite agree. And I'm not going to be the final judge. I'm going to ask the audience judge, do you think that Clement Freud was hesitating? If you do, will you cheer? And if you don't, will you boo? Will you all do it together now? Boo, you don't think he was hesitating, so Clement Freud gains a point, and there are 7 seconds left for Books I Read Twice, starting now.
Dickens, reacquainted, comes out of it extraordinarily well. Everything that he put pen to paper to is somehow...
I must say it is difficult sometimes because, you see, if you think it's hesitation and you don't challenge, it might be a long hesitation and someone else will press their buzzer first. It's very difficult when they're challenging. But Clement Freud gains another point for speaking when the whistle went, and he's now has a lead of 1 over Kenneth Williams, who's in second place at the end of that round. Clement, it is your turn to begin. The subject is cigarettes. I'm sure you can talk eloquently about them. 60 seconds will do, starting now.
These would appear to be tobacco rolled in bits of paper, now and again sporting filters at one end. The idea of the game, I have heard, I don't indulge myself, is to place the filter end in your mouth.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Revolution of filter.
Yes, we've had filter twice, Derek. Clement, so Derek, you gain a point. There are 43 seconds left for cigarettes starting now.
It's absolutely filthy reason. I really loathe them more than I can possibly say on this programme, but I'm going to have a jolly good go. I once tried one behind the bicycle shed at school and loathed it more than anyone has been for climbing round the mountain 20 times, singing, aye, aye, yippee, yippee. What?
Andre challenged you when you were on your bicycle in the tool shed.
Because he, more than and more than.
You mean he hesitated?
No, he repeated.
He repeated more than, more
saying
than.
it definitely.
Yes, he
said
definitely
more
repeated.
than, more than.
He also hesitated too, but it was the more than. You're quite right, Andre. You gain a point, and there are 32 seconds left for cigarettes starting now.
These can be bought in packets of 10 and sometimes 20 and seem to cost more money every day.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
No, I disagree. It was too slight. Andre, you gain another point, and there are 36 seconds left for cigarettes starting now.
You light one end and
That time it was. Kenneth Williams, you challenge. Yes. Kenneth, you gain a point. There are 24 seconds left for cigarettes starting now.
This is an actual fact. The famous Austrian novelist Incl said, "Life is so terrible, the only thing to do is to smoke." Now, I consider that almost a despairing cry from the heart, to have a tinge of great truth therein, and I feel a sympathetic...
You've quite distressed us with your little homily on
Incl.
Musil, yes, thank you very
rather
much.
beautiful,
But it has gained you 2 points.
Oh, good.
And you now have a lead of 1 over Clement Freud at the end of that round. But Andre Nelly crept up too, and she's in second place.
I got in the first place.
Alongside Clement Freud, and Derek Nimmo's trailing a little in, well, he'll be in third place because they're equal in second place. Very interesting, I think we're all non-smokers on this programme, aren't we? There we are, but nobody went off about it. Kenneth Williams, Ptolemy I. Can you talk about him for 60 seconds? Starting now?
Well, of course, after the death of Alexander the Great, the generals under him had a sort of carve up, so to speak, of the territory that was left, and he grabbed Egypt, founded what I believe is known as the 31st dynasty of that ancient country. Indeed, Cleopatra the Famous married one of his ancestors.
Derek Nimmo's challenged you wide.
Well, he was supposed to be talking about the first king of that name. He then started talking about Cleopatra, who founded a different dynasty.
Yes, he did, but he was not deviating from the subject in the car because he was still keeping close to Ptolemy I. So he was not deviating from the subject, therefore I disagree with the challenge. Kenneth gains a point, and there are 32 seconds left, starting now.
And to his credit, it must be said that he built the vast Temple of the Muses in Alexandria, wherein was housed the wonderful library, which, of course, could have been said in its time to have rivaled the Bodleian, though, of course, I doubt very much I said, of course, twice.
Andre Nelly challenge, why?
Ken said he said, of course, twice.
Yes. You've got to keep going.
I
Don't
know,
give them
I'm
a
too
chance.
clever for myself, that's the trouble.
Andre Nelly, you gain a point on the subject. Ptolemy I, 9 seconds left, starting now.
He was about 18 inches long with a green tail.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
Because he wasn't.
She don't know. She might have had a Ptolemy I who was 18 inches long with a green tail. You can call anybody Ptolemy the First if you want to, couldn't you? We don't know. You were too keen. Andre has another point, and there are 6 seconds left for Ptolemy the First. Andre starting now.
A lizard by that name that belonged to my older brother George, who got pneumonia in Liverpool, and we put him by the fire.
So at the end of that round, a dramatic change. Andre Melly has leapt into the lead, 1 ahead of Kenneth, who is just ahead of Clement, who is just ahead of Derek Nimmo. And Derek, it's your turn to begin. Ham rolls. Can you talk to us about those for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, anyone who's lived anywhere near that wonderful house by Richmond will know how wonderful the ham rolls is.
Kenneth Williams challenge.
Well, wonderful did occur twice.
Yes, wonderful did occur twice.
I'm afraid.
So that is repetition. Kenneth gains a point. And there are 53 seconds left for ham rolls, starting now.
They're pieces of bread you so separate, and they do provide a most refreshing repast. Some people actually add a little mustard to give it piquancy, so to speak, you see. And I've had them very often during rehearsals because I think the mixture of protein with starch does do you good.
In the theatre, of course, ham has always been taken to mean overacting, and the role, well, that is self-explanatory. So in the...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Well, deviation, because it's not self-explanatory.
Who can say whether a word is self-explanatory or not? I disagree with the challenge. Kenneth gains a point, and there are 1 second left for ham rolls, starting now.
Put them in the picnic basket and wrap them up in nice paper.
I'm afraid we have to finish the programme at that particular moment because we have no more time left. Derek Nimmo was this week surprisingly in 4th place, because he isn't very often. Andre Melly was in a very strong 3rd place, only 1 point behind Clement Freud, who was only 2 points behind this week's winner, who is once again Kenneth Williams.
Oh, well, thank you. Happy day. Worthy, a worthy victory. Truly worthy.
Well, we do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye.
Chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Andre Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, it is my pleasure to try and adjudicate between these 4 clever battlers in this game of verbal wits. And once again, I'm going to ask them to try and speak, if they can, for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject. If one of the others thinks they're guilty of doing this, they may challenge, and if I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. If I disagree with the challenge, whoever is speaking will gain a point and continue speaking on that subject. That's how we play, and that is how we score. And this week, let us begin the show with Clement Freud. You're all in the mood, I can see it from your face. A lovely subject to begin with, Clement, wine. Can you talk to us about wine for 60 seconds, starting now?
Wine is the fermented juice of grapes, red or white, usually given bottle age, and is also a cry of lament, about which more later. Many countries feel that they produce the best wine. In Austria, for instance, there's a song, Wien...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
No, he wasn't hesitating. He was going very well on wine, so I disagree with the challenge. Clement Freud has a point, and he has 41 seconds to continue with wine, starting now.
Nur du allein, das soll ein Stückel vom Himmel sein. Translated means Vienna, And the Austrian capital city repeated?
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Well, Austrian, repeat it.
No, he said Austria before, and this was Austrian.
Sorry.
So, but obviously you've got to get in because there's 3 other people trying. But as I disagree with the challenge, Clement Freud gains another point, and he has 30 seconds to continue with his wine, starting now.
Woe is me and lack a day. What a dreadful thing to happen to such a nice fella. Is a kind of wine of which I'm less partial to which I am.
Andre Melly, you have challenged.
Repetition, 2 witches.
2 witches, yes, and we can't have 2 witches in this game. Andre Melly, I agree with your challenge, so you gain a point, and you have 18 seconds to continue talking on wine, starting now.
This is something I'm always telling my 2-year-old daughter not to do. When she says, please, Mummy, can I have? And I say, no, stop whining. Why do children always take on that type of voice? I don't know, because the other way we...
Clement Freud, your challenge came in first.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes, I agree, so you gain a point, and you take over the subject of wine again for 3 seconds, starting now.
In the vineyards of Alsace-Lorraine, wine is named...
When the whistle goes, it tells us that 60 seconds is up, and whoever is speaking at that particular moment gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was once more Clement Freud. So at the end of that round, he's got 4 points, and Andre Melly has 1, and the other 2 have yet to score. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round for us? Getting a word in edgeways. Very apt, considering you haven't achieved it yet in this particular show. So can you talk about that subject for 60 seconds, Kenneth, starting now?
Well, this I take it to mean the difficulty of interjecting when the company is particularly volatile, fluid, shall we say, or perhaps loquacious. Now, the way of going about this is to raise the volume or level of your speech and...
And what? Clement Freud, you buzz.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. What were you going to say? Any idea?
I was going to do the interjection.
I don't think you'd have got a word in edgeways if
I'd
you
already said interject.
Oh, I see. You were trying to avoid the word. So, I agree with Clement Freud's challenge, so he gains a point, and he has 35 seconds to take over the subject of getting a word in edgeways, starting now.
In order to get a word in edgeways, you have to present to the people a solid front, into which you may, as it were, lance your verbiage.
Kenneth Williams' this challenge, why?
I thought it was hesitation, I was wrong.
Well, well done. I quite agree it was wrong, but you tried. But all that happens is Clement gets another point, and there are 25 seconds for getting a word in edgeways, Clement, starting now.
Sideways, upwards, and horizontally forwards are easier positions into which to brace this.
Yes, you couldn't find another word to express the same thing. You've done it twice with different words. Kenneth Williams, your challenge came first.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, I agree, Kenneth, so you get a point and you take over the subject. And Derek Nimmo has challenged
Yeah,
as
I'm
well.
just sorry, my light seems to be working. I'm just testing it.
He was testing his buzzer. He is with us, and no doubt you'll be hearing from him before the show gets much further on. Anyway, 16 seconds left. Kenneth, getting a word in edgeways, starting now.
One's best ploy is to attribute a remark to somebody famous, like, wasn't it Johnson who said, when a man sets a play to music, he is not under oath? Immediately your adversary is quelled. He does not know whether, in fact...
This time, Kenneth Williams was speaking when the whistle went, so he gains another point. And he now has 2. Clement Freud has 6. Andre Melly has 1. Andre Melly, your turn to begin. Subject, love. Can you talk to us about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
It's a many splendid thing, makes the world go round, and has made songwriters an absolute fortune. There are many varieties: maternal, fraternal, exotic, erotic, neurotic.
Derek Nimmo challenged.
Repetition of terminals.
Yes, but I'm not going to allow it.
I'm sure you're not. You're absolutely right not to allow it.
But it's a lovely thought.
Lovely thought.
Andre has another point, and there are 43 seconds left for Love, Andre, starting now.
You can fall into it head over heels and as quickly out. It's something which is very painful.
Kenneth Williams,
the
you
first
challenged.
time...
Why? What?
Yes, yes, hesitation.
No, there was no hesitation.
Oh, yes.
There was not even a hint of hesitation. Andre
All
Melly.
in and out. How was that? You know.
It's just, you two go very slowly at your side. We're rather nippy over here. And you go like this all the time.
Having had your attention drawn to that, I don't see how you could be so presumptuous to challenge Andre for that. No, I disagree, Kenneth. There wasn't a hesitation there.
Andre I know why he was haranguing the queue outside.
Andre has another point, and there are 37 seconds left for Love, Andre, starting now.
When your beloved appears, you can get heart palpitations.
Derek Nimmo.
Hesitation.
Hesitation. That time, I agree. So, Derek, you take over the subject of love. 29 seconds left, starting now.
Of course, there's also Christian love, as really, I think the most interesting thing is the words written by St. Paul to the people of Corinth some many years ago, when he said, "Though I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, and I have not love, I'm but a sounding gong or a clanging cymbal."
Why have you challenged?
It's deviation from Corinthians chapter 13.
Letter 2.
I don't believe it is.
Any B, actually.
What's that? I think Derek's absolutely right. And I think Clement Freud is trying it on. He's trying to bluff. He's determined that he's not bluffing, so I will let the audience be the judge about the Bible.
The New English Bible I'm quoting from.
I don't have to put it to the audience. They've already decided with their applause. They've decided they're on Derek Nimmo's side on this. Derek Nimmo's side. Derek Nimmo has a point. There are 14 seconds left for Love. Derek starting now.
I may have the gift of prophecy and know every hidden truth. I may have faith strong enough to move mountains.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Repetition.
Of what?
I may.
Oh, we don't travel on the maze.
Yeah, we don't hold on.
Well, you've done it on it before. Yes, you have.
never
You see.
have.
By your voice with your own petard, dear, I have warned you in the past. Once you let yourself go in that direction, you see,
I'm not going to bring my petard into this. The point is,
You're now allowed to take
we
your
have
side.
not allowed challenges on haves and mays and buts and ands. I'm not going to allow it now.
You allowed it with one last week. They said one may, one this, one the other, and you said there were too many ones.
Yes,
so if you could have that, you
there was
could have
more
that.
than two. There were two I mays. If it went on a third time, it would. I will score no points, but leave the subject with Derek Nimmo, and there are 9 seconds left for Love, Derek, starting now.
I was walking across Piccadilly Circus one day, and a fellow turned to me.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
The subject is love, not walking across.
How do you know that you might not encounter love walking across Piccadilly Circus?
That's 6 again.
That's sex. That's disgusting, isn't it? Don't clap him. It's disgraceful.
As Clement Freud said, you might encounter sex walking across Piccadilly Circus. It's still possible to encounter love. Pure love
Only
as
sort
well.
of life you two must lead.
So he hasn't technically deviated from the subject on the card, so Derek has another point. 6 seconds left for Love, starting now.
And this gentleman turned to me and said, "Hello, love, how are you?" And you know who it was? It was Kenneth Williams.
Well, obviously, Derek, the audience decided that you earned that bonus point for speaking when the whistle went, and you now have... you're in second place at the end of that round. Clement Freud is still leading, and 1 point behind you are Andre and Kenneth equal. Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. Emergencies. Many of them happen on this program. Can you tell us about emergencies in just a minute, starting now?
These are occasions I take to mean when the circumstances become abnormal and risk is involved. In these eventualities, the great thing is to keep your head even though all around are losing theirs. Count up to 3 slowly and then decide which method will be the most sensible. Common sense cannot be overestimated in these situations. Always ask yourself,
Clement Freud has challenged you.
Oh, it's Sweat's pouring off me.
That's an emergency if ever there was one. Clement, what was your challenge?
Situations. Repetition of the word situation.
Are you sure?
Such
Such a long time ago now. There's been so much sweat pouring off Kenneth in the meantime. Oh, he's training a little. I don't remember him saying situation. Did you say situation more than once, Kenneth?
No, but I'm sure Clement is a man of integrity. I do not think he would lie, and therefore I think we ought to accept it, yes.
Well said. Well said. There we are. Or is that another way of saying, yes, I definitely said situations twice?
I think I must have done it.
Yes, right. Clement Freud has a point, and there are 17 seconds left for emergencies, Clement, starting now.
Some have tennis elbow, and others...
Derek Nimmo challenged.
Hesitation.
Hesitation, yes. Your tennis elbow dried you up completely. Derek got in first, has a point, and there are 13 seconds left for emergencies. Derek, starting now.
I went to first aid classes because I think one ought to be prepared for any emergency if it happens, don't you, really? I think it's one of the things one really ought to educate one...
Andre Melly.
One really ought.
Yes, you did say
Oh,
really
I
twice,
did indeed, yes, I really did.
So
And
Andre
as
gets
she's
the
a
point.
woman of honour, I do feel that she's worth a challenge, unless she rather is.
I would like to point out to these four keen competitors, when they bring up honour, how much it's appreciated by the audience. They clap spontaneously. This is what they
surprised.
want. So, anyway, Andre has a point. There are 5 seconds left for emergencies. Andre, starting now.
On a train, one reads, do not pull the thing except in a state of great emergency.
Kenneth Williams, why do you shout?
Because it doesn't say, do not pull the thing.
No, I know it doesn't say do not pull the thing, so you are deviating. And so Kenneth has a point, and he has 1 second left for emergencies, starting now.
You blow up your mate wet!
Well, Kenneth Williams was speaking then when the whistle went, and he's now jumped into third place behind Derek Nimmo, who's still trailing behind Clement Freud, who's still the leader. Derek, it's your turn to begin. My hidden vice. That is the subject on the card, Derek. Can you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
One of these things one's awfully dubious about confessing to the greater British public, but I am terribly keen on formication. Now, what I do for this is, do you know what it means? Well, it's actually putting a feeling of formic acid on your body, as given by ants crawling all over you. And you know what I do? I go home at night, and I have a little bottle with these insects in them, and I put it on my chest, and they go wiggling around beneath the hairs, and as they go, they pinch and bite, and it's absolutely delicious, and I've never told a soul before. And when I go back to my bed this evening, I will feel in the cupboard, produce this pot, and all these little chappies will be looking at me, and I'll say, hello, how are you? Are you ready? They'll give me a nod, and off they go, squandering away, squelching, squinking, because they do all sorts of funny things to me. Not only that, they push their eggs in front of them, and that's the most delicious feeling of all.
Andre Mary, why do you challenge?
2 deliciouses.
Oh, yeah.
But I think...
She's not a woman of honour.
I was listening to every word, you see,
Yes,
and I
and
remember...
I think the whole thing was so outrageously delicious. He's probably committed every crime already. So let him continue right up to the end, if he can, on my hidden vice. 7 seconds left, starting now.
And sometimes, when they're breeding, most fantastic things happen, because the male ants and the lady ones...
Well, the thought of those ants, I must explain to the listeners, has made Derek Nimmo get up and help himself to water. I think the whole thing was utterly devious. I'm sure he repeated himself, and probably even hesitated.
Downright untrue to Martin.
But you won't get a point for the interruption, but you do get a point for speaking when the whistle went, and you now have a lead of 2 over Clement Freud at the end of that round. Andre Melly, will you begin the next round for us? The subject is sneezing. Can you talk to us on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is something that can be brought upon you by having a terrible cold, or taking snuff, or a piece of dust up your nose. When it happens,
Clement Freud, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes. I must also explain to our listeners that Andre endeavoured to demonstrate what you're doing, so she grabbed her nose and she couldn't speak, and that was the chief reason she hesitated. But Clement, you have a point, and there are 49 seconds left for sneezing, starting now.
This is something which happens very often to people who have hay fever. Suddenly, for no good reason, it would appear, they begin to sneeze, first once, then again, a third time, and possibly repeated yet on another occasion. And my smallest son, Matthew, suffers from this disease, and it's very sad because in the summer all the other children ride ponies, but not my youngest offspring, the most junior member of my family.
Yes, it was hesitation. He was still trying to find other words to express child or children. Anyway, there are 19 seconds left, Derek, for sneezing starting now.
I'm terribly allergic to oysters, and when I was in the Loire last year, I had one of these things to eat, and it made me sneeze. It's very strange, understand, eh?
Andre Melly.
Was there hesitation?
Yes,
Of course
I
it
think
was.
so on this occasion, because I was a bit harsh with you last time on the delicious. So, Andre, you have a point, and there are 10 seconds left for sneezing starting now.
Did you know that when this happens to you, you are obliged to close your eyes? It's absolutely impossible to keep them open, and I believe this is because they would fall out on your face.
We're all now trying to sneeze and see if we can catch our eyes. Keep your eyes open and we'll try and catch them, Derek. Clement Freud, your turn to begin. The subject is things I can do without. Can you talk to us about that for 60 seconds starting now?
The things that I could most easily do without are buzzers in the hands of people like Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Andre Melly. You begin to say something, and they...
And Derek Nimmo.
Just demonstrating what they do, that's all. He couldn't think of the word, so he was going to hesitate.
Well, all right, no points scored. The subject stays with Clement Freud, and he has 48 seconds left for things I can do without starting now.
Buzz.
Derek Nimmo, you have challenged.
Hesitation.
It was a definite hesitation. 46 seconds on things I can do without starting now.
One of the things I can most easily do without is Clement Freud. He sits there week after year.
Kenneth Williams. I agree. Hesitation, Kenneth. There are 40 seconds for you to take over things I can do without starting now.
The things I can do without are superficial and not really necessary in the sense of nutriment. Now, when I use that word, I of course mean that which provides for my inner well-being and not my outer. This world is far too much concerned with materialism. Too little is the inward eye turned. Oh, I've said turned twice.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge first.
Repetition of terms.
Well, we're not going to disagree, are we? Because there are 8 seconds left, Derek, for you to take over things I can do without starting now.
Covered with soup stains, his beard awry, the great belly squelching over the chair, all the time being so disagreeable to everybody.
And we never discovered who he was referring to. Derek, you were speaking when the whistle went, so you have yet another point at the end of that round. Kenneth Williams, your turn to begin. The subject, revolutions. I don't know if you've ever started any. We've almost started some in this program. But anyway, will you talk about them for 60 seconds starting now?
Well, this can be taken to mean travelling the perimeter of a circle completely, or, of course, it can mean to change the status quo, not to be confused with rebellion, which is to protest against this said thing, and the other is establishing a new order. They seldom succeed. The French Revolution is a prime example of a no.
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
If it's a revolution, it has succeeded. It's rebellions that don't succeed.
Everybody seems convinced except you, Kenneth.
I didn't say that. I said to change the status quo. And I said, apropos of that, they seldom succeed. I didn't say
the French
Revolution didn't succeed. Of course I didn't. What rubbish.
No, I think Clement has a point, which he made very cleverly. So he gains a point and takes over the subject of revolutions.
Well, it's a disgrace. And I've a good mind to leave.
There are
I'll to leave here. I've got other things I could do. I've been thrown out. I'm here all this way. Disgrace.
28 seconds for Clement to continue on revolution starting now.
The French Revolution took place in France.
It's just totally rubbishy. It's what do you call it?
You want to get back in again, don't you, Kenneth? You're trying very hard. Bad luck, Kenneth. I'm sorry. I can't quite agree. I'm afraid the French Revolution did take place in France. So Clement Freud has another point. There are 24 seconds left for revolutions starting now.
Of which country Paris was then and is now the capital city. The population at the time of
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged? Not quite. Very close. Kenneth...
Well, it's all deviation anyway. I mean, the population of Paris and the fact that it's the capital city of France has nothing to do with revolutions at all.
I think it has.
It's irrelevant. Totally irrelevant.
Oh, nothing irrelevant about it. We've already established there was the Great Revolution, the French Revolution, and he's on this subject. And it took place in Paris. It started in Paris anyway. So, there are 16 seconds for Clement to continue with revolutions starting now.
If you buy a gramophone record, which is now called a disc, it has written upon it the words or letters RPM, meaning revolutions per minute. And this is the number of times that the disc goes around.
Andre Melly, why have you chucked?
2 discs.
2 discs, yes, Andre, so you have a point. And there are 3 seconds left for revolutions, Andre, starting now.
A lot of people lost their heads with the guillotine, and...
Well, I'm afraid that is all we have time for this week, so it only remains for me to give you the final score at the end of that round. In this game, which after all is only a game, however keenly they may play it, Kenneth Williams was mildly in 4th place.
Only by unfairness and cheating, otherwise I should have won.
I would say, looking at the score, whatever things you may think, you're definitely in 4th place.
Wait till I get you outside, now.
Not content with intimidating me on the show, they now want to intimidate me outside as well. Andre Merry was obviously in 3rd place. Derek Nimmo was marginally in 2nd place. And Clement Freud was definitely, by 2 points, in 1st place. This week's winner, Clement Freud. In spite of revolutions, things I can do without, sneezing, my hidden vice, emergencies, love, getting a word in edgeways, and wine, we come to the end of this particular program. We do hope that you've enjoyed it. From all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett. We present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Andre Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much. Hello, and welcome once again to Just a Minute. And once again, I'm going to ask these 4 seasoned battlers of this game to try and talk for just a minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject if they can. If one of the other 3 think they are guilty of doing this, they may challenge. And if I agree with the challenge, they will gain a point and take over the subject. If I disagree with the challenge, whoever is speaking will gain a point and continue with the subject as long as they can. That's the way we score, and that is the way we play the game. And the audience have already started laughing because Kenneth Williams is already doing his tricks. which is playing to the audience. The subject is what excites me. So, can you talk on that subject? What excites me for 60 seconds, Kenneth, starting now?
Well, I think that in common with most people, I find extremely exciting the spectacle of semi-nudity as opposed to the complete thing. A small amount exposed really gets me going. The curiosity, which is the insatiable element, I think, in all of us, is tickled, if you like, aroused. And one mentally wonders, what's going on underneath, you see, even the faint...
Clement, for you challenged what? What from?
You don't see.
You don't see what?
I didn't say I see, I said you wonder what's going on underneath.
You wonder what's going on underneath.
You see. That's what he said.
Now, it's a very clever challenge, but you see, when it comes to nudity, if you couldn't see it, or semi-nudity, you would not be able to be excited by it. Therefore, it is obviously not a legitimate challenge, because you've got to see semi-nudity to be able to be excited.
Oh, that's true, yes.
So, your what's that? Your colloquialism was apt in this occasion, Kenneth. I disagree with the challenge, so you gain a point and you keep the subject. And there are 23 seconds left for what excites me, starting now.
Nothing more than the power of oratory. The finest speeches, words chosen with memorable precision and care, strike a reverberating chord in the memory, and one is reawakened, so to speak, renewed, so to speak.
Clement Freud, your challenge.
Repetition. He so to spoke.
He so to spoke, yes. And alas, there were only 3 seconds to go, and he would have kept the subject for 60 seconds otherwise. But Clement was the first to get in. He's so clever at doing that. And you, I agree with your challenge, Clement, so you gain the point. 3 seconds left for what excites me, starting now.
Kenneth Williams' knees give me...
Kenneth Williams' knees gives Clement Freud yet another point.
Oh, how completely overcome. I don't know what to say.
I wouldn't say anything, Kenneth. I just keep quiet. We often wonder what it was, the big bond between you.
Well, they
We've now
are
discovered.
nice, you know.
I must explain to our listeners that Kenneth has now shown his knees to our audience here. And from their reaction, they obviously thoroughly approve. Also, I must explain to listeners, if any of them heard a noise in the background of either a police car screaming in the distance, they weren't coming to help Kenneth Williams out. They were obviously on some other errand of mercy or emergency. The score, I must explain to those who may not know, whoever speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. In this case, it was Clement Freud. The whistle tells us that 60 seconds is up. Andre Millet, it's your turn to begin. What to look for when buying a dog? That's what Ian Messrs has thought of for you, and will you talk about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
I haven't written it down yet.
Wait, I'm sorry, well, you have to write it down. We'll go back to the beginning.
Very sorry, yes, right.
Well, you must warn me in future if we're going to write things down.
It's very long, you see, terribly.
I think you're just playing for time so you can think
That's
about
right.
it. What to look for when buying a dog? Andre Melly, 60 seconds, starting now.
The most important thing to look for on this occasion is a dog. You want to find an animal with 4 legs, 2 ears, a nose, a pair of eyes, some teeth, if possible, a young version of the species. And you want to be sure that you know what kind of animal it's going to grow up to when it...
Clement Freud has challenged.
Repetition of animal.
That is right, she did say animal more than once. So, Clement, you get another point. 41 seconds left for what to look for when buying a dog, starting now.
It's not at all a bad idea to look at cats, parrots, ferrets.
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Hesitation.
No, I don't think so. No. Almost, but not quite, no. So Clement has another point. 36 seconds left. What to look for when buying a dog, starting now.
And other animals, so that when you meet the dog, you're immediately able to say, you are a dog and I'm going to buy you.
Derek Nimmo's challenge,
Tom
twice.
Card.
I'm sorry, it was a great mistake.
Why?
Well, I was challenging wrongly on dog.
Yes,
On
that's
the
right,
car.
yes.
I'm sorry.
Well, there we are. Yes, you're being too keen. All that happens is Clement has another point, and there are 29 seconds left for what to look for when buying a dog, starting now.
perusing carefully will show you the gender of the beast in question. Turning it upside down.
Kenneth Williams.
I haven't come here to listen to a load of filth. But the bad entertainment. Sit here and listen to between people's legs.
I kind of agree, Kenneth. I don't think it's necessarily what to look for when buying a dog. I don't think you need
It's
to
not
look...
necessarily. The dog is. We all know
No.
the dog is the dog. If he's saying about dogs
No,
and bitches.
Kenneth, let me say, if it was a bitch,
Oh, yes.
it's
that's what I
looking
meant,
when you're
yeah.
looking for kind of dog.
Well, if it was a
Isn't
Yorkshire Terrier, you wouldn't see anything anyway, would you?
What to look for when buying a dog.
Yes, you wouldn't establish the gender, you say.
No, that's right. No, there we
You've
are.
got to.
You've got to establish the gender, otherwise you might get a bitch. That's what you're going to say. Well, all right. I will score no points because I think it was a debatable point, but I leave the subject with Clement Freud, who has 18 seconds to continue with what to look for when buying a dog, starting now.
Bright of eye, wet of nose, and savage of tooth is really what the ideal dog should be. He growls at strangers and licks friends. He mouths, barks.
Well, Clement Freud just managed to keep going until the whistle went, so he gains that extra point for speaking on the whistle, and as the challenges were debatable, he got no points for the challenges. I want to make that quite clear, but he still has a commanding lead at the end of that round. And he continues talking because it's your turn, Clement. The subject is pulling a cork. Can you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
That's absolutely disgusting. How do you talk about it? You grip it in your hand and you establish whether it's a hen or a cock, and then pluck it carefully.
Derek Nimmer, you challenged. Why?
He's not talking about pulling a cork, he's
No,
about
of course he-
pulling a cock.
Is that what you said?
That is what I said, pulling a cork.
You could have fooled me, is all I can say.
All right. But Clement Freud, you did not fool us. So I'm going to give it to Derek Nimmo. He has a point.
We'll have to start all over again.
No, not
No, that's
and
irreparable,
Derek
is
Nimmo
it?
has rescued
Goodness
us.
knows what old ladies in the Falkland Islands will think. There'll be a lot of knitting stitches dropped out.
I refuse to believe that my diction is so bad. Derek Nimmo is going to take over the subject. There are 48 seconds left for pulling a cork. Starting now.
When you go fishing, it's very advisable to throw a cork into the water so you can see whereabouts the line is following your boat. Now, if you do not do this, the string goes right down and you don't see it again. Sometimes, of course, you can pull one out of a bottle, and my great-grandmother bequeathed onto me the most splendid corkscrew. It is worked on a trellis device, and patented, I might say, in the last century. It fits snugly on top of the bottle, and with a great swish, out it comes, and perhaps with a as well. That makes it particularly nice when you drink your wine, which could be muscadet, or perhaps some Merceau, or perhaps...
Andre Melly, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, he was searching for another wine, and it's very difficult when you're having to keep going. So, Andre, I agree with your challenge. You take over the subject of pulling a cork, and there are 13 seconds left, starting now.
There are a great deal of new scientific ways of doing this these days. Some of them are to do with air pellets.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
That's not pulling a cork.
No,
That's
it
air
isn't.
pressure which goes in...
Yes, it is not
Yeah.
pulling a cork. You see, pulling a cork. No, it's the pressure behind that shoots the cork out. You see, it's not scientific. So, you were deviating, and Derek gets the subject back, and there are 6 seconds left for pulling a cork, starting
I
now.
tied a piece of string on the end of the cork and I walked round Trafalgar Square.
Kenny Williams, why have you challenged?
String.
String, yes. you
Absolutely
had
right.
string.
Jolly good. Well listened, Ken.
So, Kenneth, you gained the subject and a point, and there are 4.5 seconds left for pulling a cork, starting now.
Well, it's always best to leave this sort of thing to waiters. They do it far better than I do it, and I always do.
Kenneth, will you begin the next round? Patriotism. Will you talk to us about patriotism for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, that great woman, Edith Cavell, said, "It is not enough." She said, "There must be no hatred in my heart for anyone."
And I think it's very, very beautiful. On the other
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Repetition of very, very.
it doesn't matter.
No, it was not a repetition of very, very, it was a repetition of very.
Very, very beautiful. Oh, well, I mean, repetition. Very, yeah,
Yes, well, all right, but it was a bit of a tough one, because after all, he was quoting and he was giving a very fine example of patriotism,
Right.
so I will charge no points, leave the subject with Kenneth Williams. 50 seconds left. Patriotism, Kenneth, starting now.
Dr. Johnson said it was the last refuge of a scoundrel. And of course, there is something to be said from this point of view. It has been used or abused by many people in the world. I have no time for it myself. I think much the same thing applies to any piece of land. You can't say this is peculiar because of so and so and so. I
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
rather a lot of so.
Yes, that time definitely repetition. So
mean, it was
Derek,
nice.
yeah. But he definitely gains a point that time, and there are 19 seconds left for patriotism. Derek, starting now.
I'm deeply ashamed of Kenneth Williams' view on patriotism. Red, white, and blue, what does it mean to you? Sure you're proud, shout it aloud, let it be known.
Deviation. He's doing a song now. He's not listening.
And he is doing a very patriotic song. So he is still on the subject of patriotism. Therefore, I disagree with the challenge. Therefore,
Oh, well, in that case, we could all start quoting reams of songs.
you were quoting someone's
Dr.
speech.
Johnson, Edith
You-
Cavell.
Ah, that's different with me, because I do it beautiful.
Others would do it beautifully, but you do it beautiful. Anyway, Derek has a point, and there are 8.5 seconds left, Derek, for patriotism, starting now.
Down I go to the devil with my Union Jack, and I stand on the cliffs. What ho, I say! I'm an Englishman and proud of it. Come on, you...
Why is he walking along like that, Nick, and sticking his behind out?
This is one of those moments when we wish this was television and not radio, because Derek Nimmo was giving an impersonation of Kenneth Williams arriving at the beginning of the show.
Well, it's a disgrace, because you shouldn't mock infirmity.
You've mocked his impediment before now, his stutter.
Oh, I thought it was a pediment. I'm sorry.
No, that's on his foot. Right, the subject is Derek Nimmo to start. Yeah. Clock chimes. All right, Derek. 60 seconds on that subject, if you can, starting now.
I once knew a man who sat outside a big building to listen to the chimes. That's not real.
Someone's
sorry.
challenged.
Yes, he mistook it. He thought he said it twice and he hasn't gone.
Yeah, but if he... Nothing to do with... No. If he challenges,
Who
if he
challenged?
can't justify his challenge...
Who challenged?
Well, somebody pressed the buzzer. But no light came on, I'm afraid.
I think.
Oh, wasn't really.
Now...
Okay, lock the doors. Nobody leave the house.
I'm going to put you all on your honour. You've all been very honourable up to now. Who pressed their buzzer? It wasn't... There we are. So, it was an incorrect challenge, so Derek Nimmo gets another point. And
You're
there are
very
51
buoyant tonight, aren't you?
I'm all revved up, like a clock chimer. So, there are 51 seconds left for you, Derek, on clock chimes starting now.
I must say, I love the sound of a jolly old clock chime, don't you? Ding, dang, dong, dong. Ding, dang, bong, bang. No more enjoyable noise.
Clever Freud challenge you.
Repetition?
Of what?
More and more.
That is quite correct. Yes, I wanted to hear. You might have said
What?
ding or bung.
You said
or
more
dong.
and more.
Having got clever
did
around
I?
your dings, dongs, and bungs, and bangs, and all that, you then were so carried away you said more and more, and Clement spotted it. I agree with your challenge, Clement. You get another point. 41 seconds left for clock chime starting now.
One of the most famous clocks is called Big Ben, and it chimes on the hour and...
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Well, the clock is not called Big Ben.
That is perfectly correct. The bell is Big Ben. Well done, Derek. So that was deviation.
Well, what is it then that's called Big Ben? The bell?
The bell.
Well, the bell belongs to the clock, so when he says Big Ben...
He said the clock Big Ben chimes. It's the bell.
Well, what else is it that does?
What did you say
One of
then?
those famous clocks is called...
Yeah, well, if the
Famous
clock is
clock.
called Big Ben, it's the clock that does do the chiming, isn't it?
No, it's...
Well, he's still right. Of course he is. The clock is the thing that...
Oh, well, all right, if you're going to start argument, let the audience judge. They haven't judged yet. Do you agree with Derek Nimmo's challenge? If you do, will you cheer? And if you disagree, will you boo? And will you all do it together now? There's no doubt about it. Derek Nimmo has a point, and there are 34 seconds left for clock chimes, Derek, starting now.
Tompion made some of the finest clocks in this country, and all of them had the most wonderful chimes fitted within them. Some can be seen in the Victoria and Albert Museum. If you go into their long gallery on the second floor, there you will see a wonderful burr walnut case clock, which is absolutely magnificent. One of the finest examples of craftsmanship, I think, in this country. Oranges and lemons, said the bells of Clemens, and that is a pretty little...
Kenneth Williams, why did you challenge?
My hesitation. The bit of Clemens.
You had deviation, because oranges, lemons, said by the bells of St. Clements, yes.
No, you
Anyway,
started when you were speaking.
Well, all right. It was also hesitation, I see. I quite agree. Yes, I quite agree. So, Kenneth, you have a point, and you have 8 seconds left for clock chimes starting now.
Not that I really want them. I regard them as the most dreadful sounds ever to come upon my ear. They don't float or it like the sweet sight
Well, Kenneth Williams was speaking then when the whistle went, and he's now jumped into third place. And Kenneth Williams is in third place, Andre's just behind in fourth. And Clement Freud, it's your turn to begin again. The subject is the invention I most approve. Can you talk about that invention for 60 seconds, starting now?
The invention of which I most approve is the wheel, and a very fascinating invention it was, because first of all they thought, let's make it a triangle. And they rolled this down a hill and found...
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
deviation. It's impossible to roll a triangle.
Now, you can only roll something that is round. You can make it turn from point to point, but that is not rolling.
I mean, this is how they got the wheel.
It's how they got the wheel, but they didn't roll a triangle. They moved a triangle from point to point. I decide that rolling is not a thing you can do with a triangle, so it must be a smooth surface to roll. Therefore, Kenneth has a point, and he takes over the subject with 47.5 seconds left, starting now. The subject, by the way, the invention I most approve, starting now.
Well, of course, there's no question about it. It is Kenneth Williams. This invention has delighted thousands of people who would, without it, have been totally bereft. People say to me, without you, where would my nights be? My evenings, totally empty.
Clement.
You fill the space.
Clement Freud challenged you. We were just loving
We've
it.
had two peoples.
Yes.
Yes, we did. I'm
And
afraid
without-
we had two peoples. People have
Oh,
said
fixed
this.
deviation, because I'm not an invention. I'm a natural product. So you can
I know, but
how any of you let it all go on for so long.
I'll tell you why. I'll
I'm
tell
a
you
natural product.
Kenneth,
I
I'll-
miss you. You
Now,
see, I
quiet,
miss you.
Kenneth, quiet for a minute. I'll tell you exactly why they let it go on.
Why?
Because you made such a point about your fascination. They
Yes,
they
that's
really
true.
felt they should give you a chance to go
Yes.
on your feet. And you did.
I let it go because his mum's sitting in the front row and nodding.
And I must... If this was television, the producer would now have whipped a camera onto her at this particular moment to show that she was thoroughly embarrassed about what her son was saying at this moment. Anyway, the subject is the invention I most approve. It's back with Clement Freud, who's getting another point, and there are 33 seconds left, starting now.
So then they tried with a square, pushing it along an incline, and not very fast did it move downwards. So...
Derek Nimmo, why did you challenge?
Hesitation.
Not quite. He was coming towards that moment of hesitation, but didn't quite achieve it. So Clement has another point, and there are 23 seconds for the invention I most approve, starting now.
They trimmed off the edges, put on a hubcap, invented spokes, and there was the wheel, rolled...
Derek Nimmo's challenge, why?
Revelation of invented.
Yes, that's right. Yes, you've had invented more than once. Derek, you have a point. You take over the subject of the invention I most approve. 17 seconds left, starting now.
The invention of which I most approve is the single yellow line. I find it absolutely fascinating when I go out of my house in the morning and there I see a great long slip of yellow net.
He couldn't get away from it, could he? Clement, you challenge first.
Repetition.
Of what?
Yellow.
Yes, that is correct, yes. So, you said yellow more than once, Derek. Clement, you get another point. 3 seconds left for the invention I most approve, starting now.
A circle came later.
At the end of that round, Clement Freud again increased his lead over Derek Nimmo, who increased his lead a little over Kenneth Williams, and Kenneth increased it a little over Andre Melly. And in that order, they are still at the end of that round. Kenneth, it's your turn to begin again. I paused because I wasn't quite sure what it's in. As thought of you, it is the snark. Can you talk about the snark for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, I believe this is an imaginary animal. It occurs in the title, The Hunting of the Snark, and I understand it was written by someone called Dodgson or Lewis Carroll, as he was styled, for the purpose of authorship. And this whole thing had its beginning in the idea of diverting the young. It certainly never succeeded with me. I infinitely prefer Gibbon or John Motley to this muck. But I believe with many people it has achieved a kind of popularity. The explanation...
Derek Nimmo, why do you challenge?
Repetition of achieved. Never cheated.
Yes, he did.
Oh,
Yes,
very
that's
clever
right.
of you, huh?
Yes, yes. He's very much alive. And Derek has another point, and there are 23 seconds left for the snark.
Well, it's
Derek.
always fascinating, I think, to think of Mr. Dodgson in his Oxford college, leaning out of the window, looking at little girls going across the grass, and all the time he's thinking of his snark. Now,
Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud challenge, why?
Deviation.
Why?
Certainly deviation is a disgusting...
There were no little girls in Oxford colleges
that's
in
where he
which...
saw...
He could
That's
well
where
have
he saw
seen one
Alice.
out of term time. You were allowed to take visitors into the
That's
colleges
where
out
he
of
saw,
term.
where he met Alice, you see, actually, in Wonderland.
I don't think he saw a snark. He might have seen a deviation.
Really, Alice is at it again, Alice.
No, you can't justify Clement.
He was
Derek
here.
Nimmo has a point, and there are 15 seconds left for him to continue with the snark, Derek, starting now.
I bought a new boat last week, and I'm going to call it the Snark. I think it's an awfully appropriate name for a catamaran, don't you? Because a catamaran has...
Andre Melly got in that time.
Repetition catamaran.
That is right, and there are 8 seconds left for the snark, Andre, starting now.
This poem, which tells you how to hunt a snark.
Kenneth Williams, why do you challenge?
It's not a poem.
What is it then?
Prose.
It's not. It's
Oh.
poetry.
Oh, well, I've never read it. I always understood it was prose.
No, it's definitely poetry. It rhymes, with a tum-ti-tum, very much.
Oh, well, that's not poetry either then. That's doggerel. He wasn't a poet.
Well tried. They do try hard, don't they?
No, it's certainly not poetry. It's doggerel. Doggerel, unquestionably.
Some people think it's great fun and very good poetry. And Andre Melly has a point, and she
He's
continues
not
with the
even
snark.
listed. He's not even listed in the Book of English Literature, this man. It's rubbish. It's all rubbish.
Kenneth Williams, you cannot get round me. Andre Melly has a point. There are 5 seconds left for the snark, Andre, starting now.
Is difficult to understand because in a way it is a form of rubbish writing. And when you want to go
I'm afraid that is all we have time for. I see that it is time to call a halt to this particular edition of Just a Minute. So let me give you the final score. Reading backwards, as I like to do, but I find it very difficult. Andre Melly and Kenneth Williams were equal in 3rd place. They were a little way behind Derek Nimmo, who was in 2nd place, who was behind this week's winner, Clement Freud. We do hope you've enjoyed this particular edition of Just a Minute. And from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett.